Should I be seeing it on my YouTube?
You should. If it's not there, you definitely should be seeing it. What the freak? I wonder if it'll just start once it starts. Hey, what's going on, everybody? If you guys are on here and you can see and hear us, make sure you let me know. Cato, you want to talk too, just to make sure? So
yep,
let us know if you guys can if you can hear us both clear. Actually, you know what you can do? Pull up the link that I sent you and watch it from my YouTube and tell me how we sound.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Clyde, you should be on there, bro. It says check, check, check. Like yours should be there. There we go. There we go. We are live. See and hear all y'all. All right. Check, check, check. Like yours should be there. There we go.
Looks like we're good.
We are live. See and hear all. How's yours? All right. Go ahead and talk, Cato.
Where would I see it?
How's yours?
Yeah, we're good. There's a delay, but we're good.
Go ahead and talk, Cato.
Yeah, we're good. There's a delay, but we're good.
All right. Cool. Sounds like everybody can see and hear us. I think we're ready to go. So, to any of you guys that don't know who these two men are, they're super gay. Just kidding. We got Cato. Cato, you want to introduce yourself real quick? Let people know who you are.
Yes, sir. Cato de Zora, I guess, independent researcher.
Yeah, you call yourself that, I guess, among other things. And then we got the real Clyde in the house.
Yeah, the real Clyde, United States Marine Corps veteran, just like this guy.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Professional noticer, professional reel maker, a world traveler. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Among other things.
Among a couple other things, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, these guys came into town to go on the podcast. We did some freaking banger episodes, both of them. Mine and Clyde's was freaking 4 hours long. Mine and Cato's was over 3 hours long. And who knows, we might even do another one on Friday. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But they both came in from out of town. And so we figured while they're here, we might as well also jump on and do a little three-way stream and just see how it goes, see where it goes. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Where do you want to start?
What was the last thing you guys talked about in your pod?
The last thing we talked about?
Yeah.
Who knows, dude? What was the last thing we talked about?
The last major theme was the protocols of the elders of Zion.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we did a full episode basically talking about Judaism and talking about the just truth-based facts about the religion so that people can kind of understand more about it and also just kind of understand what's going on right now. And yeah, the last thing we talked about was the freaking protocols of elders of Zion.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit because a big thing that I'm really into is history, right?
He's disgustingly educated in this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I've done a lot of historical research because I think a lot of people think this goes back to maybe the founding of Israel or maybe the Balfour Agreement or maybe something, maybe 100 years ago, whatever, but it goes back thousands of years. And there is a fundamental conflict between Christianity and Judaism. And Judaism really kind of sees itself in a conflict with all other races and all other civilizations, and they always have because of their fundamental idea of chosenness, right? So it goes way, way back, and there's tremendous amounts of history in this, which we talked about a lot in our episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that for me is one of the most impressive and fascinating documents in this whole history is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. To me, it's literally one of the most profound political documents ever written, like in political history, period.
Yeah.
Because it is fascinating with respect to human nature, with respect to governance, with respect to the rule of law and the role of law and the role of government. It discusses all these things, but from a really dark and diabolical perspective. It basically says the Goyim are stupid. The Goyim are very easily led. They're distracted by trivial matters. They're easy to conquer. And because they're easy to conquer, they don't deserve self-government, right? It's not something that they're capable of handling. for that reason, we need to rule them. And the way that we're going to do it is by basically tricking them into, into us ruling over them before they even notice what's happening.
Right.
Now, the reason why nobody ever studies this profound and fascinating document is because it's always been considered to be a hoax. From the first time it came on the scene in 1905 in Russia, it was immediately called a hoax.
I'm going to pull it up.
And yet, if you read it, number one, it's incredibly well written. It was written by people who have a profound understanding of history and of human nature, particularly the dark psychology aspect. And then if you read it from the perspective we're at now, 120 years after it came on the scene, you can see we went through all the points. There's 24 points in that document. We went over them in our podcast. 22 out of those 24 points have been accomplished. And most of them are still in the process of continuing to be accomplished to this day.
Yep.
There's only a couple end stage ones, like the fact that there will be a Jewish king that basically rules the whole world. That hasn't been achieved yet. And one or two of them are kind of like, still in the works. But if you read that from today, maybe in 1905 or 1910, 1915, you could have called it an anti-Semitic hoax because everything that was written in it seemed so outrageous at the time. You could easily say this is just something to, criticize Jews or whatever.
What is it again? The 24 points of the
Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Protocols.
And we did a quick little summary on chat.
I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
In one sentence each.
But now if you look at it, you can read it and you can pretty much see that everything in that document has been accomplished or is still in progress today. And we went through them. If we can pull that up, we should read them again.
I'm pulling it up right now.
When you were reading them, you were kind of like giggling and shaking your head because it's like so obvious.
It's freaking wild, dude. Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. All right, here we go. So all I basically did was what I did in the podcast. And I just said, basically summarize the 24 points of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in one sentence each. And as you guys can see, I mean, read these and think about what's happening right now in the world, especially in the United States of America. It's freaking insane. But like even just the first one, right? Forgery claims, secret Jewish plot to destabilize governments through manipulation of public opinion. Economic disruption will be used to weaken states from within. Freedom and liberalism are tools Jews supposedly exploit to create chaos. Conspirators will eventually turn chaos into authoritarian control. Plan to use economic hardship and debt as methods of domination. Strategy to encourage moral decline and societal decay. Wars and conflicts intentionally orchestrated for strategic gain. Government can be secretly controlled through financial influence. Freaking, I mean, is that scrolling with us too? It's not going to show me that, but education and press for ideological manipulation. Democracy is a tool for deception, eventual authoritarian takeover. Corruption and bribery, deliberate instruments of domination. Will you look at the YouTube feed and just let me know if this is scrolling with us? Because I can't see it on the TV. Yeah. I think it is because it's screen record or it's sharing my screen. But let's see. Corruption and bribery, deliberate instruments of domination. Press to be monopolized in propaganda and thought and control. Plot to regulate arts and culture, manipulative ends. Religion will be undermined and weaken moral resistance. Violence and political terrorism are strategic tools. Fabricated conspiracy. Legal systems, targets for subversion and manipulation. Public institutions like education reshaped for control. Plan to weaken monarchy, national leadership to install hidden rulers. Despotic, how do you say that? Despotic rule, eventually welcomed by desperate public. Global financial systems taking over total power. Lending and credit used to enslave nations. Economy something to be centrally controlled by conspirators. Unity destroyed to ensure dependence in supposed rulers. Insisting the final autocratic world ruler falsely portrayed as Jewish will emerge. Like these are the 24 points. And by the way, I actually just noticed that I did something differently this time and I didn't even realize it until just now. But in the podcast, I said, summarize it based on what we're seeing in the United States of America. And in this one, I didn't say that. So it actually,
I think it was the same prompt, but it just came out that
so
way.
It just spit out different things.
Yeah.
But still, like as you go through it,
yeah,
So you were explaining that back when it was first written, people were like, "This is crazy,"
I thought
right?
it was outrageous,
And
for
it
the
did
most
seem
part, yeah.
crazy.
Although remember, there was a very strong, like, sort of a discussion taking place in Europe where there was a genuine Jewish question and a Jewish problem, and even Jewish scholars and Jewish leaders phrased it as the Jewish question. That's not a Nazi thing.
Yeah.
In fact, the first people who started saying the Jewish question were Jews. One of the first people who actually wrote an essay called on the Jewish question was Karl Marx back in 1844.
That was the number one thing that blew my mind in our podcast, is the fact that for the longest time we have been told that the quote unquote Jewish question was something that was created by the Nazis,
Right.
and that it was literally like that was the most anti-Semitic thing possible.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you actually research it, it wasn't created by the Nazis.
No.
It was something that was going on in Europe long before that,
Generation.
1700s, 1800s, and everyone, including the Jewish population, were talking about quote unquote the Jewish question, which was basically just our culture does not mix with these other cultures simply because of our values and the way that things are. It's just a reality, and all of us together want to figure out what do we do.
Yeah. And there
Like
were
it
different
was,
ideas.
and it wasn't anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
It was literally like a socio-political problem that they had to figure out.
Well, some people definitely had more anti-Semitic answers than others, right? But it was a real problem. It was a real problem, and the Jewish community also acknowledged that it was a real problem. And the Jewish community came up with different ways of addressing that problem.
Yep.
And one of the more radical ones was Bolshevik communism. That was a way, that was a means, a more radical means of, let's solve this Jewish question by overthrowing the governments, the Gentile governments that have oppressed us and caused us so many problems for so long.
Yep.
And so what's really interesting is when the protocols were first published in the United States in, I believe, 1915,
Yep.
they were published almost in their entirety. However, the publishers, this was published in a newspaper. They published it in multiple parts. They published it while taking out all references to Jews and inserting either Bolsheviks or communists. Because number one, it was, there's a strong Jewish population and they didn't want to piss people off. But also what's really profound is, if you think about it, the mere fact that this document could be the same document, but you can remove Jews and insert communists and it still makes sense and it still reads normally and naturally, that is profound. And then when you realize that most of the Bolshevik Jews or most of the Bolshevik communists were Jews, about 85 to 90%, in particular the ones in leadership positions, then all this stuff starts to paint a clearer picture. So it could be considered a very radical answer to the Jewish question from the Jewish side. The most hardcore Jewish revolutionaries working in concert with the Jewish bankers, the ultra wealthy Jewish bankers who had been very wealthy in Europe for generations by that time. They figured they could work together and overthrow these governments that had caused them so many problems. And that's what they did. They did it in Russia. They almost did it in Hungary. They may have done it in Hungary. There's a big revolution there. And even what's really interesting is if you read what would be considered a Nazi perspective, but it's just an alternate perspective of the World War I in Germany, they said that the reason the famous stab in the back, which was the German government surrendering, even though the German army had not even been beaten back to anywhere in German territory, they were well into Belgium and France when they surrendered, which is weird. During that time, the way they described it was a revolution, a Jewish revolution that had taken over the Berlin government, and they called that the Revolution of 1918. So there was a lot of socialist or communist revolutions going on in Europe, and they were pretty widely understood to be Jewish-led revolutions. And there were Jewish agitators involved, there were Jewish press involved, Jewish media, and Jewish financiers behind it, backing the whole thing. And it was obviously successful in Russia, but there were many others that weren't successful. Like in Germany, there was quasi-successful, but then there was a big reactionary movement back to that. And that, of course, eventually would become what we now know as the Nazi movement.
Right.
So there's this whole big conversation is going on in Europe in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And of course, after World War II, this explosive conflict where, after that, the whole world changes. And then, Jews get the Jewish state, finally Israel, and so on. Then all of a sudden you see all that kind of scholarship and literature just disappear. It's not published anymore. No one, because, the Holocaust made everybody feel bad, or at least what we think of as a Holocaust. So you no longer have researchers, You no longer have scholars. You no longer have like statesmen, people of high levels of power. You no longer hear them writing books or writing studies or professional journal articles talking about the Jewish problem. Because they're like, oh crap, the Holocaust happened. We can't say anything bad about Jews anymore. We're just going to not talk about this at all.
Right.
Until many generations later, here we are again talking about it. And now, actually, right before we started this live stream, I saw a new poll that says there's very significantly high numbers of Republican voters now agree with the statement that the Holocaust was either fabricated or what actually happened is dramatically different than what we've been told.
What percentage?
About 37% of Republican voters agree with that statement, but about 66% of Hispanic Republican voters agree with that statement, and about 64% of Black Republican voters agree with that statement.
Wow.
I found that to be really extraordinary. So there's still well under 50% of Republican voters that agree with that statement, but 37% is pretty substantial.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that's partially because white people are so afraid to be racist. Like, white people are not going to say things that are going to come across as anti-Semitic, even though they're thinking it. Okay, because they're so afraid of being called racist or anti-Semitic or whatever. Whereas, like, if a Mexican or a Black person does it, they're not going to receive the same criticism.
So, you were actually talking about that, Kato. You were talking about how it's easier for Hispanics to get away with that.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about it in the podcast, but you and I talked about it personally.
Yeah.
I'm Mexican American, right? Hispanic, Mexican immigrant mother, white father, grew up on a cattle ranch, many generations in America. So I never fit in with either group, growing up, but I've always been able to sort of like blend in and sort of like find my own way. And what's really interesting is growing up, I always noticed that it's very clear and very blatantly obvious to me, as being someone who's half Mexican, half white, that white people were being browbeaten my whole life. I've seen white people get beaten up on TV, in music, in movies, always being discredited, always being the bad guy. I saw white people always cast as the villains, and all this stuff about causing not just Mexicans but basically every other race other than white people to be encouraged to be proud of their race, to proudly display their heritage and their culture and all this stuff. But you never see white people doing that. There's no like white pride. That's
because again,
that was like outrageous.
Yeah, because you nailed it. It's because for the longest time, my kids have been told they don't even know this yet, but apparently, according to some people, my kids were born racist, right? Like, just because they're little white kids, they're born racist. That's just how it is. And it's like, what are you talking about? You and I were kind of talking about this. Like, my kids, my little boy does not know the difference. He does not know color. He knows that's a little boy and that's a little girl. It doesn't matter what color they are. He doesn't know the difference of that. It's asinine to think that we are inherently born racist, but that's a real thing that has been said for a very long time. And white people have truly been just like, beaten over the head with this idea of inherent racism and inherent privilege. And also, we're not allowed to be
critical we're not allowed to be proud of anything. We're not allowed to be proud of our white heritage or our white culture, and we're not allowed to criticize anybody else, but anybody else can criticize us.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, who was it? Jimmy Fallon. I don't know if you guys saw this clip, but when he does his intro to his late night show, he was reading a census. Basically, the census said that for the first time in however many years, the white population in America has decreased, X amount, and the crowd erupted in cheering and clapping.
No way.
Yes, this is real. You can clip this. You can look it up.
What is it?
It's just look up Jimmy Fallon reads the census of white population decreasing, and the crowd erupts in cheer and laughter, and Jimmy kind of just laughs it off. But imagine if he had said that about the Black population or the Mexican population or the Asian population.
He would be canceled tomorrow.
He would be canceled that night. They would have ended the show. He would have been canceled. I mean, but you can literally cheer for, yes, no. I think maybe that one.
This one. This has to be it.
I don't know. I think I saw it on. I saw the clip on Instagram, but it's like,
this is it. Oh, it's unavailable.
Yeah, I wonder why. But that's the thing, and this has been happening. This has been boiling over for decades. Here it is.
Okay, hold on. I gotta turn the.
Are you sharing this live?
Yeah. Oh shoot. Yep. But I gotta change which screen. Hang on a second. Gotta stop screen. Share screen. Hang on, guys. Let me put this up real quick. This one. And then I gotta change the audio. Screen audio. Let us know if you guys can hear this. I don't know if you're gonna be able to. I hope so, but we'll see. Let me know if you guys can hear this. Actually, you could tell me. Go on the stream and tell me if you hear it. All right, ready?
Here you go.
Census just came out, and for the first time in American history, the number.
Can you hear it on there or no?
Yeah.
Some more news: the results of the 2020 census just came out, and for the first time in American history, the number of white people went down.
You see that? Look, he just laughs it off, man. He just laughs it off like it's a joke. Like the census said that the white population went down, and people are cheering over that, and it's like a joke. But if he said that about blacks, about Mexicans, about Asians, about Jews, about anybody else, canceled that night. His show would have been done. Who was Jimmy Kimmel, who got canceled for like a brief moment because of the Charlie Kirk thing? He would have been cooked if it was about any other race. But we've been seeing this boil for decades, and now I talk about this a lot more these days of the white nationalism and what that is and why we're seeing that right now. And it's because of stuff like that's been happening for decades now that we get people like Gypsy Crusader. Gypsy Crusader is the effect of that. Okay. When that happens and white people are told that you are racist inherently, you shouldn't have any pride in your culture should be eradicated. There's many clips of people out there saying that if they could snap their fingers and all the white people died tomorrow, they would do it. But you can't, if you say that about any other race, you're cooked, you're done, you're canceled. And so I talk about this a lot because every other country except for white countries is allowed to have, strict immigration policies and strict policies for basically people becoming citizens in those countries like Japan, the Middle East, Africa, Israel, wherever else. But when it comes to America, Canada, Australia, and Europe, they're supposed to just open up their borders and allow anybody to come in who wants to come in. And I talk about this a lot because we were talking about this on the podcast yesterday, but it's not just about, these migrants want to come in and we need to kick them out or whatever. It starts when the neocons start wars in these third world countries. They destabilize these countries. They prop up corrupt politicians. They plunder their resources and they make those home countries a shithole. And then that creates a vacuum where you have a bunch of refugees that want to flee to go somewhere. Well, where are they going to go? They go to the countries, the first world countries that have their borders open, which is Europe, which is America, which is Canada, which is Australia, right? And so now, because those people were destabilized, they're fleeing and going somewhere. They're going to Europe, they're going to America. And what happens is the left-wing politicians open up the border and allow all of these migrants to come in. And then you see so many migrants that don't want to assimilate or can't assimilate. And they're trying to bring where they came from and turn it into that country. So they're trying to bring India into the UK and turn it into India or turn it into Pakistan or turn it into Nigeria, wherever they're coming from. And that's why you're seeing these white nationalists pop up all of a sudden, is because they're like, whoa, this is a problem. And you can even see with the birth rates. In England, I think the birth rate for native-born English people is like 1.3 children per household. Whereas in a Muslim household, it's 6 to 8. So in 10 to 20 years, England is going to be a Muslim country. England is not going to be an Anglo-Saxon white country, white Christian country anymore, but it always has been. And I'm not allowed to talk about this. I'm not allowed to say this, especially as a white guy. I can't defend white Christian countries. But if that happened in Saudi Arabia or if that happened in Japan, everybody would be in an uproar. But you can't say that stuff as a white man these days.
Can I? So I want to talk about why you can't, because all this stuff links, right? Going back to, because a lot of my research is older, right? And yours is more current. When you wrap your head around the fact that Jews and white Christians have been in a civilization level conflict for at least 1,500 years, almost 2,000 years. And they perceive this conflict. Jews very well understand that they are fundamentally anti-Christian. They reject Jesus, they reject Christianity. And a lot of people think they think of Jews as white people, right? I think if you were to ask random people on the streets, especially minorities, if Jews are white people or not, they would mostly say that Jews are white. Jews do not typically identify themselves as white, and they certainly don't not as like Gentile European Christian.
Unless it goes
Because right in that moment, yeah. Right. Historically, Jews, Jews ethnically and religiously have been in conflict with Gentile Christian Europe going back many centuries. They all the way back to ancient Rome, right? That's kind of for them, that's where this conflict starts. Rome versus Jerusalem, which was actually the title of the book by that guy, the communist rabbi Moses Hest. His book was called Rome versus Jerusalem.
Right.
And the idea of Jerusalem and Rome being in conflict ever since, before the year zero, it's something that is still kept alive. That hatred, the hatred for the idea of Rome is very strong within Judaism, especially within rabbinical religious Judaism. So they perceive Rome to have evolved over time into the Christian monarchies of Europe. And those eventually evolved into the republics and democracies of Europe and the United States and other peripheral countries like Canada and Australia and stuff. So they believe that those are their enemies. It's the modern iteration, the evolution of Rome, and they want to see it destroyed. 2,000 years later, if they can achieve the destruction of Western civilization, it's like they finally achieved their goal.
Ian, can you pull up that clip of Bibi literally saying how they need to win? What you're saying,
the propaganda.
I don't know
war?
if you saw the clip, but some reporter was walking behind, or he was walking next to Netanyahu,
Rome,
and he was like, "Hey, Prime Minister, are you reading anything these days?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I'm actually reading an interesting book about our battle with Rome or whatever." And he's like, "Well, we lost the last one, but we'll win this one." And he's talking about the new Rome, which is us, which is the new Rome was the Byzantine Empire. That's where the new Rome started. It was the Christians. It was the Christians back in the 4th century. And we've always been the new Rome, America, the West, and the Christians. So that's what he's referring to. And he's just blatantly saying
right here.
He's blatantly saying, yes, he's saying that he's going to destroy the new Rome.
I literally made a full post on that. It was because it's freaking insane.
So in order for them to wrap up their 2,000-year-old mission, they have to cause the downfall of Western civilization, because they believe that Rome evolved into the Western white dominant, Christian dominant nations. Now, when you perceive 2,000-year-old mandate to defeat their ancient enemy, and you realize that behind the immigration, behind the LGBT movements, behind feminism, behind porn, behind all these culturally, morally, racially destructive things, there's Jewish agitators behind all of them, and Jewish dark money, and Jewish, political organizations. That is not at all a coincidence. It's because they perceive themselves to be in a state of war against a civilization. It's not a war with tanks and bombers and all that stuff. It's
an information war.
It's more
propaganda war.
It's a moral and spiritual level civilization war.
Yeah.
And they believe they're continuing the war that the Jews started 2,000 years ago, or that Rome started against them. And that they need to win.
Here we go.
We want to know what you're reading now.
What I'm reading?
Yeah.
It's a book by a historian by the name of Barry Strauss. It's called The Jews Against Rome. Jews Against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
We want to know what you're reading now.
What I'm reading?
Yeah.
It's a book by a historian by the name of Barry Strauss. It's called The Jews Against Rome. Jews Against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
We want to know what...
Right there, he literally says, I think we have to win the next one. But for context, for the people that don't know, when they lost the last one, in 70 AD, that's when the Romans destroyed the temple, the second temple. And then in 135 AD, Emperor Hadrian basically exiled all of the Jews from Judea. And that's when we get the last big great diaspora of the Jewish people outside of Judea.
Sorry, I'm going to pull this one up too. Keep going.
And in 135 AD, Emperor Hadrian actually renamed Judea to Syria Palestina. That's actually the first time we hear the term Palestine. And he named it Syria Palestina because of the Philistines, the longtime enemy of the Jews. It was out of spite for the Jews. And there was this great diaspora, and they, this probably very well, they scattered all over the East and Europe and parts of Northern Africa. And Then they don't come back to the Holy Land, come back until 1948. And since then, it's always been a power struggle against the new Rome, because after that, Christendom took over the Roman Empire in Rome and in Jerusalem and in the Byzantine Empire, which is in modern day Turkey, under Emperor Constantine. In 313, he issued the Edict of Milan, making Christianity legal. This was a huge slap in the face to the Jewish people, because for almost 4 centuries, the Jews were persecuting Christians that whole time. Every Christian, if the Roman Empire or the Jews found out that you were Christian, they would kill you. There are stories of them rounding up hundreds of Christians and taking them to the Roman Colosseum and crucifying them or feeding them to lions and all this stuff. And that was propagated by the Jews of that time. It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees that were going out and hunting these Christians and then essentially like snitching on them to the Romans, and then they would be killed. But in 313, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity and he legalized it. And that was like a huge slap in the face to the Jews, because now Christians have the Roman Empire, and Constantine shifted powers to the Byzantine Empire, which was in Constantinople, and it became a huge epicenter of the East. And then we have the buildup of what happens today. And so, yeah, there's been this long 2,000 plus year history of animosity from the Jews to the Roman Empire, which is now connected to the Christian Empire or the West.
And Christians basically forgot all that.
Oh, dude,
Jews keep that hatred alive.
Oh, I know, bro.
Conflict is very
I'm
clear.
Orthodox Christian, and Protestants don't know our history. Protestants do not understand.
Jews on a pedestal.
They put Jews on a pedestal. Christian Zionists are the ones that reside in like the Protestant sect. So the Protestants have no fucking idea about their 2,000 year plus history. Okay, they think the church started in the 1500s. There was 1,500 years prior of church history of persecution from the Jews and the Muslims, and they forget all of that. They don't have any fucking idea. And now they're siding with the Jews. They're siding with the Zionists and the Israelis because they've been propagandized by people like John Darby, by Scofield, the Scofield Bible. Even Martin Luther, as much as he was vehemently against the Jews, he was seen as like anti-Semites. When he was reforming the Bible, because there was one Bible, the Bible was canonized in the late 4th century. And they had an Old Testament called the Septuagint, which was the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Well, that Septuagint dates back to the 2nd and 1st century BC. Now, when Martin Luther reformed the church, he went and he basically tried to reform the Bible. And so he removed 7 books from the original canon of the Bible in the Old Testament. And what he did was he went to Jews to go get their Hebrew translation of the Old Testament. He thought that the Jews of that time would have been preserving or would have preserved the original Old Testament. So he went to the Jews and he got their transcripts of the Old Testament, which was the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text is contradictory. It has multiple contradictions to the Septuagint. And the Masoretic text is essentially the Jewified Old Testament. And that's what the Protestant church has. They have a Jewified Bible. And not only that, they started with a Jewified Bible because they picked the Masoretic Old Testament text. And then fast forward to the 1900s when Scofield writes the first reference Bible, the Scofield Reference Bible, which was he was heavily influenced by John Darby, who was a dispensationalist. He invented dispensationalism, which is essentially the belief that there's 2 groups of God's chosen people, the Christians, the church, and then the Jews. And then we have to bless the Jews. We have to support the Jews. All of this comes from Darby and dispensationalism and the rapture and all that nonsense. And so Scofield, he had about a 43-year gap lifetime. He was alive during the end of Darby's lifetime, but he was heavily influenced by him and his teachings of dispensationalism. So when Scofield was writing that reference Bible, he was putting all of those Jewified footnotes at the bottom of each verse. And that's actually where you get this notion that when you read that book in Genesis, where it says
It's where all of Judeo-Christianity comes
it's
from.
literally where all Judeo-Christianity
it started earlier. We talked about how it started earlier, but like this was kind of the catalyst for launching it into the West. And
Primarily the US.
and Christian, the idea of Christian Zionism.
Christian Zionism, which at that time it wasn't coined that term. That's like a more modern term. But that Scofield Reference Bible permeated throughout all of the theological institutes and colleges and churches, and all of the ministers and pastors, all of the Protestant ministers and pastors, especially the Baptists and the evangelicals, they were brought up learning from the Scofield Bible. So then when they go prop up churches and they go lead denominations, they're teaching all this Judeo-Christian nonsense. And then that just spreads like wildfire throughout the states. Also, Orthodoxy never really fully made it into America. So America was kind of from the 1900s founded on the backs of this Judeo-Christian nonsense.
Very much so.
Yeah.
That's why the whole way that American Christianity has evolved is very different from the way it evolved in Europe. Radically different. So it's really no surprise that America and Israel have become a power axis. I mean, I frequently mockingly refer to the United States as an Israeli colony because the way it operates,
51st state.
I say this all the time. America is three things. It is a debt slave labor army, a social engineering laboratory, and a mercenary army, primarily for the global Judeo-Masonic, cult is what I usually call it. And most Americans have no idea about any of this stuff.
They have no idea it's even going on. That's why there's such an awakening right now.
Right. We live in this happy little bubble. You know, we think everything's fine.
Yeah.
But globally, most of the world really hates. They passionately hate. Most of the world hates the fact that Israel is such a malevolent country, so intrusive, so violent, so aggressive, and that America always backs them in everything it does.
And not only that, we freaking shoot down all the UN resolutions to hold them accountable. Yeah. Here's the other thing too that's interesting. I actually said this. Remember what happened on X where basically they were starting to reveal like the locations of where these accounts were coming from or whatever. So you had all of the MAGA, like right-wing Christian Zionists or whatever coming out and trying to use that as like fuel to prove some kind of point. Like, oh, all these accounts, this accounts from this place and this accounts from this place and this accounts from this place and this accounts from this place. And they're all attacking Israel. And I literally got on one day and I was like, you guys are idiots. What do you think all you're doing is proving that more than the US hate what Israel is doing. And they hate them from all these other countries. But then to your point, to those guys, right? But you're not calling out the accounts that now have been found to be in Israel that are or that are pro-Zionist and all these other things. And it's like, what argument do you have for there? Like, or from any of the other places that are pro-Zionist, right? It's not just from Israel. There were places from other countries that were pro-Zionist. How do you, you're shooting yourself in the foot here.
What was it? The DHS, their Twitter account was based on
Israel? Saw that.
Yeah.
Like,
what the fuck? Like,
I saw that and I didn't know if it was real or not because the screenshot was like
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security. Yeah.
The thing is though, the screenshot was kind of like, yeah, you could fake that. But I did see that somebody posted a screen recording of when it happened. And so I don't know. That being said, I don't know about that one because I know that they like responded or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised, but I can't like confirm it. But let me play this clip really quick because to your point, what you're talking about Rome, I don't know if you've seen this one, but this one, he literally says it out loud. Listen to this.
We had a moving visit today to the wall. I can't resist repeating this, but I'm going to. I said to the secretary that the last time Pompeo visited Jerusalem didn't end that well. But this is a different time. Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. But the new Rome, the United States, views itself as a new Jerusalem. We had a moving visit today to the wall.
I'm sorry, what? What did he just say?
The secretary that
what?
The last time Pompeo visited.
Let's watch it again.
Didn't end that well. But this is a different time. Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. But the new Rome, the United States, views itself as a new Jerusalem. We had a moving visit today.
Take it away, bro.
I'm looking for one of my.
He's like, I'm looking for ammo.
But it's like they can get away with saying this stuff because people are fucking retarded. People are retarded.
Well, not only that, they don't know what he's talking about.
They don't know what he's talking
because
about.
Unless you heard that clip that you brought up first about the book, and unless you know history about Rome and all those different things, they would hear that and they wouldn't have no clue what he's talking about.
Exactly. Nobody knows that history in the West, especially in America. Like the churches don't know that history. They don't understand.
And they don't teach it either.
No, they don't teach it. They don't understand the history between Christians and Jews and the Roman Empire, which turned into the Christian Empire. They don't understand that because the Protestant Reformation disassociated themselves with the Eastern Byzantine Empire, which was Christendom for centuries. for, it's been the epicenter of the Eastern Church for over 2,000 years. And they don't understand any of that history or the nuance or the continuity there. Also, people aren't paying attention to this. People don't care. They've been brainwashed to think that Israel is our ally, and they might be hearing that and thinking that that's a good thing. They're all consumed with this goy slop and sports and jerking off and like not being a productive member of society. They don't give a fuck. They don't know any better. So he can say this stuff. They say blatant stuff all the time. And it's like, nobody's going to fucking care. Nobody even knows what he's talking about.
I found a good source that I want to
Hey.
share. So on this,
Get on your Instagram live and ask to join mine. And then I'll add you to it so that you're in it and they're seeing the same thing at the same time.
My phone's going to die at 22%.
Oh, well, try it because you'll pull more people in is what I'm saying. Because they probably don't know right away. Go ahead, Cato. Sorry.
so all good. So I was, I've done a lot of research into this whole Rome versus Jerusalem concept. And I found this really interesting academic article. And this was published in France. So it was translated into English at some point. But it's called The Use of Rabbinic Traditions About Rome in the Babylonian Talmud. And the idea here, so this is an academic scholarly article where basically this individual, his name is Ron Nyweld, is talking about the very extensive use of the Rome versus Jerusalem narrative throughout all of rabbinic literature. So he's going back many centuries talking about how Jews have this obsession with framing their existence in being like in eternal conflict against Rome. So I want to read the just sort of like the basic rundown of this. It says, this article claims that the Talmud of Babylonia uses ancient traditions about Rome in order to create a fantasized world system in which Rome and Israel function as two complementary and eternal rivals. The analysis of several Talmudic sources shows that the Babylonian rabbis inherited the complicated image of Rome together with the rest of the rabbinic traditions that arrived in Babylonia from Palestine. Blah, blah, blah. They sustained the symbolic power of the Roman Empire, even though they lived outside of it. And Rome became for them a mirror image of Israel, which in turn became a spiritual empire protected by God. So basically, throughout all of this history of their 2,000-year war, which I call it, they believe Rome is their eternal rival. It has always been their enemy and always will be until only one or the other emerges victorious. Now, Rome became a material for them in their sort of fantasized worldview. Rome became a material empire, something that was made out of concrete and marble with buildings and sort of evolved into the Byzantine Empire and then the various Christian monarchies of Europe and eventually the United States. So it's the evolution of Rome that has existed for them, even though they've infiltrated it and subverted it and participated in it to a very large degree, which they still do today. It's always been their rival, their eternal rival. For them, their empire has persisted in the book, the Talmud, and protected by God. So they have like a spiritual empire in their minds. And eventually they are destined to win. So the Western sort of idea of Rome is destined to crumble and fall into dust and be blown off the earth. And they are destined to, at some point in time, rise and become like the masters of the world. That is a narrative that they've been telling themselves for 2,000 years. So everything that they can do to bring about the destruction of Western civilization gets them closer to finally winning this 2,000-year-old war. And that's why you have people like Bibi Netanyahu, who is someone who he's blatantly, clearly has an obsession with this idea of Jews defeating Rome one day, which is shared by a lot of people who are radical, right-wing, Orthodox Zionist type of people. They frame everything in terms of this eternal biblical conflict against their ancient enemy, Rome. And for them today, Rome is the West and particularly epitomized by the United States. So they want to bring about its downfall and they're working toward that.
Well, and we were talking, that was actually one of the last things we talked about on our episode, because there's so many people right now that have been watching what's going on in Palestine and what Israel has been doing. And every time they speak, it's like they're not even hiding it. Like, it's like they want everybody to know exactly what they're doing and how bad the situation is on purpose. And what we were talking about is how, like, ultimately that's going to force what is known as the Jewish question, right? It's going to force that whole idea of needing the state, the political state of Israel. So it's almost like confirming everything they're saying about how there needs to be a political state of Israel. And because it's like anything that's happened in the past where, so if you guys are just joining right now, I know there's a lot of people that are joining just now. We talked about the fact that the idea of the Jewish question, everybody hears that and they think immediately that it's like a Nazi trope, and it's not. It actually started in the 17 and 1800s, and it was all of Europe, including the Jewish population, that were actually trying to figure out. It wasn't a hateful thing. They were all literally just trying to figure out, our cultures don't mix. What do we do about this? And eventually it was adopted by the Nazis, and then it became the final solution to the Jewish question, right? But that had been a buildup since the 1700s. Right. And so it's almost like what's happening with Bibi and the state of Israel is that they are forcing the answer to the Jewish question in their mind, which is the nation state of Israel, Greater Israel Project, and the United States being completely on board because the United States is Greater Satan and ultimately Rome,
right?
New Rome.
Right. And remember, to sort of like wrap up their final, biblical prophecy, in the last days, all the nations of the world have to come against Israel, right? They have to.
It's biblical.
It's right, and that's they're forcing,
exactly.
They're manufacturing prophecy, and in addition, all the Jews of the world have to reunite in Rome. So they've been, in Israel. So they believe, and this is a sort of an old rabbinical, belief for many centuries, that the reason that they were kicked out of Jerusalem is not because they just simply lost a war. They believe that God was punishing them by sending them into exile. And to a very large extent, they believe that, not all Jews believe this, obviously, because there's a lot of Jews that live in Israel. There's a lot of religious Jews that believe that they can't return from exile yet because their Mashiach has not yet arrived. So because they've been waiting around for 2,000 years for this to happen, there's a very substantial part of the Jewish community that is basically making things happen. They're making end times things happen so they can wrap up their narrative. And a part of that is going to be all of the Jews of the world reconcentrating in what they consider to be the Holy Land, which is Israel. And they have to expand Israel in order to make room for another 7 or 8 million Jews. So that brings us to right now why they're wiping out Gaza, while they're attacking parts of Syria, they're attacking parts of Lebanon, and they're going to keep doing that.
Yeah, they're not stopping.
Because number one, they get away with it because they have everybody in power in the West blackmailed into oblivion. And then most of the people in these countries don't really give a shit or know anything. So they're going to keep getting away with it. But they also have to, just logistically, because they don't have room for all the millions of Jews that have to go back to Israel in order to wrap up this storyline. They have to wrap up the storyline. It's a 2,000-year-old storyline. So the most radical Jews, the most radical Jewish leaders, people like Bibi Netanyahu, they've done it before. They have provoked or enabled all kinds of persecution of Jews to get Jews kicked out, like regular working class, family-oriented, regular Jews, people who are not plotting against the world. They have to get them kicked out of where they live so they will go to Israel and reunite in Israel and build up Israel as this, world power in the future. That's where the whole New World Order prophecy comes. So I believe to a large extent, a lot of the sort of like because we agreed earlier during our podcast, there is a lot of people waking up to the whole, Jewish influence and how it's very corrosive to Western civilization. But it also seems like this is being forced. It seems like there's so much content coming out.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
completely
pushed.
Forced.
Yeah, it's occurring.
They're allowing it to happen.
Right. It's not stuff that you find, because I had to really dig deep for a lot of stuff years ago when I started all this stuff. Like in 2021, I started, doing this research, and it was really obscure. Like I had to really dig very deep to find anti-Jewish stuff from throughout history. Now you can be a regular ass person who's just taking your 15-minute break at work and open up Facebook or Instagram, and you're going to find all these anti-Semitic reels. Why is it being pushed on people who aren't looking really, really hard for this information?
Yeah.
And we know that mostly Jews run these platforms. So now we're starting to see that it has to be something that is intentional at this point. And so when you understand that they have this prophecy, we're in the end times of the world, when basically the world, comes into this huge third world war that they're probably going to manufacture. The Rome, their enemy Rome, however they define it, has to fall, and all the Jews of the world have to reconcentrate in Israel, and then the Mashiach will come and all this stuff. And in the end times, they're basically going to rule the world. That is their prophecy. That's their sort of their wild, very imaginative, malevolent prophecy that they have. But if they're making these things happen, then that means they need to create the conditions for Jews to want to leave and go back to Israel.
I mean, create the problem and present the solution.
Exactly.
It's the same damn playbook every single time.
Yes.
Every time.
And that's what they did in Germany. That's why the Zionists were working together with the Third Reich in a partnership arrangement.
Yeah. People don't want to talk about that though.
No, because Germany wanted Jews gone. This final solution was not to exterminate them. That came about way later, well into the war. The final solution was kick them all out of the country, and the Zionists were fully on board.
The Zionists were on board with that.
Yeah.
Theodore Herschel was
their idea.
Theodore Herschel was a staunch supporter of that idea.
Yeah.
They wanted to leave.
And remember, it was their idea in the late 1800s. That's when Hitler would have been a child.
Yeah.
So they were already plotting to find ways to get the governments of Europe to kick out Jews so that they could bring them into the Holy Land.
The Jewish people were.
Yes.
The Zionists were.
The radical Zionist
Yes.
leaders. In their imaginations, they were trying to come up with a way to force Jews, because a lot of Jews, they were quite wealthy. They were quite powerful. They were, there were some working class Jews that lived out in little towns or whatever, but a lot of them were very wealthy, just like in the United States today. If you look at this, a lot of people are mind blown about this. If you look at a breakdown of income by race, you will find that white people are not that privileged. On average, they're fairly low, actually. Towards the bottom is white, black, Mexican. Then as you go up, you find more Asians. I think at the very top is it might be Indian Americans.
That's not surprising
right.
at all.
But so who is conspicuously left out of most of these charts, if you find them, as Jews? If you find a chart where it has Jewish family, household income, it is it's a huge gap.
Where can we find that?
Above. Well, I have it buried somewhere, but basically it goes up. The average income goes up, like household income goes up to the point where the highest one is Indian American. I think it's about 120,000 a year, at least when it was published. It's probably changed since then. But it's basically like that whole top line is just kind of snipped off because they don't want to show it.
If you have that, send it to me.
But Jews is about double. Their household income is like 240,000.
Here, let's just do this. You want to chat GPT it? See how that goes?
So, they live well. So they have to be really pushed out of these places where they live well.
What should I ask?
But also the reason that everything you just explained is also why they're causing this genocide in Gaza in the open. Like, this has been in the open. If they actually wanted to genocide the Gazans, they could have poisoned their water supply. They could have done it way quicker and way more systematically. They're doing it in the public eye because they need this hate towards the Jews and hate towards Israel so that they can bring all of the people back into greater Israel. Yes. So people would ask, it's really in our face. And a lot of people have been wondering, why is it so much in our face? Well, because they're harboring this. They're basically creating the anti-Semitism so that they have a reason to build greater Israel.
I have to say this. I actually think at this point, they're quite frustrated at the fact that so many of people still aren't pissed off at Jews and they're still supporting it. Literally. No, I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. I think the radical, Bibi Netanyahu type Zionists, they're like, how much more can we do to get these people to hate Jews and kick them out of their country? How far do we have to go? Because no matter how much hate we try to manufacture, so they'll get kicked out and end up in Israel so we can wrap up our storyline, there's still so many Jew defenders. How much more ridiculous do we go? So they shoot kids in the head, right? There's thousands of kids who've taken accurate headshots in Gaza. This is documented. There's actually a Jewish doctor, multiple Jewish doctors.
I saw that they found bullets lodged in the skulls.
Yeah, and they've done reports about it. And one of a Jewish doctor, I believe his last name was Perlmutter. He's like a pretty well-known surgeon, I believe, in North Carolina. He went there to help out, basically just kind of go on a mission to help out. And he was absolutely blown away by the number of children, small little toddler age children that had taken accurate headshots, thousands of them. So it's very obvious that there's well-trained marksmen in the IDF that are using children as target practice by placing accurate shots in their heads. And then these bodies are ending up in his clinic, his little pop-up clinic that he was trying to run in Gaza. And he was so pissed off about that he started writing about it. And I'm pretty sure he even testified in Congress about it. You know what happened? Nothing. Because no one's going to challenge Israel.
They know that too. Israel knows that. They know that they can commit a genocide in front of the world's eyes in broad daylight and get away with it. They know that they can literally do whatever the fuck they want, and nobody's going to do anything about it because, like you said, they blackmailed our politicians into oblivion. They pay off all our politicians. They do the same thing in England and in Germany. So they know they can do whatever they want, and nobody's going to stop them. And they're putting it right in front of our faces to piss us off and make us anti-Semitic and say that there's a big rise of anti-Semitism. And now we need to have greater Israel and push all these Jews back into Israel. And so they're spreading that propaganda amongst the Jewish population here in America too, to get them thinking, oh man, maybe it's not safe for me to live in America anymore. Maybe it's not safe for me to live in England or France or wherever. I should probably go to my homeland and go back to Israel. And that's why they're also they're pushing into the West Bank more and more and more and more every single month. They're annexing the West Bank. Yes, the settlers. There's over 700,000 settlers, illegal Israeli settlers in the West Bank, and they have no intention on stopping that. And they're going to continue pushing and doing that, and then they're going to continue pushing and push and do that into Lebanon as well. Like they
already are. They've been bombing Lebanon for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. No one's talking about this, but they have not stopped bombing Lebanon. I think the last time they bombed them was like a day ago.
I think there's been over 500 bombing attacks since the ceasefire, and they're still calling it a ceasefire. You know what happened when they called it a ceasefire? All they did was rebrand their genocide. It's insane. It's totally insane. They get away with it. And then you read any American news outlet and they're still calling it a ceasefire, but they're saying, oh, the ceasefire has been challenged. Oh, the ceasefire is holding on.
But that's happened. That's happened every single time throughout history. Yeah. That's always been the MO. That's why when the whole thing was coming out about the ceasefire with the Trump administration and everything else and all the, the man of peace or whatever, all of us who understand this conflict and who have been watching for any amount of time knew that nothing was going to come from that. We knew that ceasefire was not going to last. And all the MAGA people that were celebrating it and saying, oh, look, there's peace in the Middle East. Are you high?
Like, pause real quick because my phone's going to die. If you guys want to keep watching this, go to Ian's Instagram.
I might have a charger for you, bro.
It should be.
Do you need a USB-C?
Yeah, USB-C.
Yeah, I think we have a charger. I can charge it.
If this cuts out, guys, it's on my
YouTube,
YouTube, it's on Ian's YouTube and Ian's Instagram as well.
Kaden, do you have a charger?
Negative.
But here's the other thing, man. It's like everything you just explained is for greater Israel, and it's to fulfill the Jewish prophecy. But that's not Zionism. That's Judaism.
Right.
And people want to conflate the two and act like they're mutually exclusive. When the end goal, the ultimate end goal is the Jewish prophecy to bring back the Messiah and defeat the Roman Empire and to have total supremacy over the world. And they actually think the Jew world order. And they actually think when the Messiah comes that Gentiles will be their slaves and work for them. And they're about the red heifers? Yeah. They're breeding red heifers. Yeah. They're trying to get the 5 red heifers. They want to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque. They're done with Iraq. And after all of that, then they can have, a couple more prophecies are fulfilled. Then the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, can come back. The crazy thing is, where this also ties into Christian Zionism, is the Jewish Messiah is the Christian Antichrist. It's literally, and Christian Zionists are propagating this too. Christian Zionists are literally rooting this on.
Someone said that in the chat earlier.
Christian Zionists, and there are churches. I've seen these stupid fucking videos of churches that have Israeli flags on the stage behind the pulpit. And they're literally shouting, we need to bomb that church or we need to bomb that mosque so we can usher in the Antichrist and we can have, the Armageddon and Jesus will come back. And they're literally trying to, fabricate the end time prophecy in the biblical revelation as well. Right. So they're trying to bring the Antichrist back. So they're supporting all this nonsense that the Jews are doing. But again, this is, where should I plug this in at?
Just send it to me.
And hey, while they're plugging in Clyde's phone, guys, if you are not following both, first of all on YouTube, if you guys are not subscribed to my YouTube channel and to Clyde's, please subscribe right now. We have our podcast episodes coming out, which is awesome. It's literally like 4 hours long. And then follow Cato on Instagram. What's your Instagram, Cato?
Cato.Zora.
How do you spell it? At Cato, Cato.
Cato.Dezorra.
There you go. So make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTubes and also follow our Instagrams. All of us have Instagram. Follow Cato on Instagram. That's what he's on right now. And we appreciate you guys. You know what? I'll just put these links on here while you guys are doing that, but go ahead.
So anyway, yeah, no, I like what you were saying about how they've kind of co-opted a lot of Christian churches, like the evangelical churches, into becoming, you know, Zionists, based increasingly fanatical Zionists, because they're using their gullibility, thinking that they're somehow being good Christians by supporting Israel, but in reality, they're kind of bringing about this catastrophically destructive end times.
Yeah.
And what they don't know is there's a twist ending. The twist ending for Jews, who are the architects of all this stuff, is not that Jesus is going to come back and rule the world and everybody's going to live in peace and harmony. It's that their Shabbos Goyim that they're constantly, you know, mocking and using, they're the ones who are going to be eradicated, and Jews are going to be the ones that kind of come out on top. So there you have this sort of like this very strange sort of almost a partnership. It's more of like a parasitic relationship, where you have the Jews who are using the wealth and the size and the power of the very, very sizable, very wealthy, very devout evangelicals in America, who are basically Christian Zionists. They're using them to achieve their goals and to protect them and to fund them and to send them weaponry. And like in the global war on terror, they basically use the American army to go and clobber all of these Middle Eastern countries and overthrow governments and all this kind of stuff. They're using them, but in the end, it's going to be them. They're the ones who are going to win. They're the ones who are going to come out on top, as far as they think anyway, because it's their sort of world order that they're supposed to dominate at the end of the story. And that's the part that most Christians have absolutely no clue about, and they don't bother to learn it. They don't really seem to want to hear it. It's very, very difficult to communicate communicate this to Christians because they don't want to hear it. I've had a lot more luck, I think, reaching people who are not religious, or reaching quite a lot of people who they come at me with hostility.
Yeah.
But hostility is still engagement. Like, if someone is mocking you or criticizing you or talking shit to you, but they at least listen to what you say back, sometimes you can get them to realize that they're wrong, because you can tell them, okay, fine, fact check me. You think I'm such an idiot? Go check this stuff out for yourself. And some of those people come around.
And they will go check it out.
But the people who seem to be too locked in to ever like let go are the people who are really indoctrinated in Zionist evangelical American Christianity. They're the ones who it's almost impossible to get them to see the truth.
Yeah, because of their fear mongering with religion. If you can convince somebody that their religion tells them that they have to support a group of people, or God will scorn them, God will rebuke them, or God will curse them, dude, it doesn't matter. And this has been one of my big things. It was like, because I'm a Christian, Orthodox Christian, I'm not Protestant. I used to be, grew up Protestant. But one of my big angles is reaching the Christian Zionist market and reaching those people and waking them up. But you can't do it by giving them facts or showing them videos or pictures of dead babies in Gaza. That doesn't get through to their thick skulls, man. It doesn't work. So what you have to do is you have to poke those holes in Judaism and in the oxymoron of Christian Zionism and Judeo-Christian values. That's what you have to do. So you actually have to go to the source, Judaism, and this oxymoron, and you have to explain to them that, no, we're not supposed to support Israel. There's never a calling for Christians to support the modern day of Israel. So you have to attack it from that angle. You can literally show them pictures and videos of dead babies in Gaza, and it's not going to compute. They don't care,
to me,
because they think if they ever turn on Israel, they're going to be cursed by God. And so doesn't matter what the fuck you show them. You could literally tell them that America is going to be given to Israel and be like, well, okay, but we got to support Israel because otherwise God's going to curse me. You'll never get through to me unless you do that.
To me, though, dude, it's not even just about freaking like the dead babies in Gaza or anything like that. I mean, dude, literally, we were talking about this. We went over this on our episode too, where it was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, it's like every single time something like this happens, there's just the most asinine thing, the most asinine, illogical thing that they're trying to get us to believe. We were talking about how, look at that wall. That wall's red. No, I beg your pardon? It's black. So it's like this whole idea of Judeo-Christianity. They don't believe in Jesus Christ. How the hell is that cohesive in any way, shape, or form? It's not. They literally believe the exact opposite of what Christians believe. We believe Jesus Christ was the Savior of the world and the Son of God. They don't even believe he was a prophet. They believe he was a dissenter. Yeah. And it's like, so in what world do we not only support them almost more than we support our own people and our own religion, but then on top of that, we put them on a pedestal as if they're better than us?
Right.
What the hell are we talking about here?
I think when you say they don't believe in Jesus Christ, they very much do believe in Jesus Christ. They believe he's a traitor.
That's what I mean.
They
though.
believe
don't,
they think
they don't worship Jesus Christ.
no.
Yeah.
They think he's a traitor. They think he was just about the worst thing that's ever happened to Jews in history, with the exception of Hitler. That's how much hatred they have for him. He seems to be the chief subject of Jewish hatred throughout all of history, possibly exceeded by only Hitler very recently. But they have, and you see it everywhere. You can see the hatred and the contempt for Jesus and for Christianity all over media, all over music, all over TV. They joke about it all the time. Like there's a lot of Jewish jokes that are kind of like low key making fun of Christians or Christianity or mocking Jesus Christ. And if you're watching have you
seen some of the videos from their like TV channels from channels in Israel?
I posted about this earlier. Their TV channels, like their talk show hosts or their talk shows,
Let's bring it up,
and all sorts of stuff. They just blatantly they'll take a little doll and hammer it on a wooden cross and like make fun of it. They make fun of the Mother of God, Mary. They say that Jesus is burning in excrement in hell. I don't remember what it's called.
What should I type in? What was it? Do you remember?
Jewish TV mocks Jesus. But I mean, we can see this in the development of the Talmud as well, because when the rabbis were writing the Talmud, right, they were talking about Jesus because that was a sore subject to them. Jesus was always hated by the Jews for 2,000 years. And you see it in today's pop culture because they run pop culture, right? They run the music industry, the entertainment industry. They're always mocking Jesus. The one religious figure that they always mock is Jesus Christ. It's not Muhammad. It's not Buddha. It's Jesus. They're even making a movie right now with, what's his name? Treasure hunter guy. What's his name?
This one. This was it, played by the monkey, right? The crucifixion of Jesus Christ, played by a monkey.
Yeah.
And of course, it's some chick in some OnlyFans chick. Real. Hang on a second. Here we go.
Just skip to the part where she hammers him on the cross.
Hold on. Let me go. Yeah, because I'm gonna have to. I can't show too much of it, or I'll get flagged.
I mean, yeah, it's literally 2,000 years of.
Here we go. Right here.
I would say they hate him more than Hitler because they've had more time to hate him. Like they've had cumulative hatred. Yes, cumulative hatred. They've had 2,000 years to hate Jesus. They've only had 80 years to hate Hitler.
That's so stupid.
It's ancient hatred.
I can't believe you're.
It's a visceral, ancient, deep, dark hatred towards Jesus.
Okay, here we go. Oh, hold up.
אלוהים! למה עזבתני? אתה נאצי, ישו, אתה נאצי. טופי, לא, טופי, אני מפחד. אני הלכתי על המים, אני הפכתי צרצרים לעוגה. לא, אני לא ישו. זאת טעות, אני משה רבנו. אל תתני במסדרים, טופי, לא. זה רק אפק, פחדן. לא! טופי, אלוהים, לא!
Yeah, these are the people that we're supposed to bless. Yeah, you and I, we have to bless them. Yeah, and it's not even that. It's not even just within Israel's borders. It's in American pop culture. Dude, it's in the Grammys. They're always, dressing up as the devil, or who was that black chick that went out on the Grammys recently or whatever, and she came out on a cross. She literally came out on a cross. They're always mocking the cross. They're always mocking Jesus. They do it in movies. They do it in TV. They do it in comedy. They do it in the music industry all the time. So yeah, I think they have 2,000 years of hatred, visceral hatred towards Jesus and all of his followers. And it goes all the way back to the first century when the Pharisees and the Sadducees were hunting Christians down. They killed, Jesus came and he was the Messiah. They did not view him as the Messiah because they thought the Messiah would free them from the Roman Empire. They thought that the Messiah was going to be riding in on a white horse like a knight to come and save them from the Roman Empire. But Jesus didn't do that. He came to fulfill the first covenants, the Old Testament, and open up the gates of heaven for everybody, Jews and Gentiles. But they did not like that. So they killed him. They said, this guy is gaining a lot of traction, a lot of followers, a lot of people are listening to him. We can't shut him up. We can't silence him. So let's just kill him. So they kill him, and the Christian belief is that he rose again, and his followers increased. Like he gained more followers. And after that, they're like, okay, we killed this guy. And he's still getting all these followers. Let's just kill all his followers. So they tried to genocide the Christians in the first 3 centuries, almost 4 centuries, to eradicate all of Jesus's followers. They hated him that much. It wasn't, I mean, the Romans, yes, they did want to kill Christians, you know, people like Nero, because Nero saw himself as a god himself. And if you weren't worshiping Nero, then he would kill you. But that persecution of Christians was propagated by the Jews. They're the ones, and still is. They were always the ones. They're the ones that wanted Jesus killed. Pontius Pilate said that he didn't even want to kill Jesus. He said, "This is on you guys." And when they handed Jesus the cross and put the crown of thorns on his head, Pontius Pilate, this is in scripture, Pontius Pilate literally washed his hands in a trough and said, "My hands are clean from the blood of this man. This is on you, the Jews." And they wanted to kill him. They had the Romans do it. And after his death and resurrection, they're the ones that wanted all of his followers dead too. It wasn't the Romans necessarily. It was always them.
Right.
So
I want to talk about, based on my research of the Talmud, because I had that course that we talked about earlier. But I find it very interesting that the narrative about how Jesus was tried and executed is very different in the Talmud.
Yeah.
Because in the Talmud, he meets a different end. He's still tried in a court and ultimately executed. But in the Talmud, they don't give Rome or the Roman government any authority, and he wasn't crucified. So they have basically a different ending to that story. He was a Jew. He was one of theirs. So they do take credit for him, but he's a bad Jew that needs to get punished for going against the Jews. And he was pretty much brought to justice by Jews. He was tried in a Jewish court according to Jewish law, and he was legitimately convicted, and then he was executed according to Jewish law, which interestingly enough resulted in him being stoned to death, not put on a crucifix. So they're taking full credit. They're basically saying he's a Jew, and we Jews, the Jewish, at that time, the rabbis and the judges would have essentially been the same group of people. They're like, he's one of ours. We are going to take care of him. He is a very, very bad Jew. He's a sorcerer. He's an idolater. He's all these kinds of things. But in their narrative, they are claiming that they were solely responsible for bringing him to justice, for trying him, for convicting him, and for ultimately executing him. And then for the rest of Christian and Jewish history, they get really, really mad when Christians repeatedly bring up the fact that they have killed Jesus. When they bragged about because they bragged about it. And a lot of them brag about it today sort of like almost mockingly or contemptuously in the media and stuff. But in their own historical narrative, the Romans had nothing to do with it. It wasn't like a shared thing where the Roman government did it, but the Jews were behind the scenes plotting. In their narrative, it was all them. They were the only functioning government in Judea, and he was one of their citizens. So it was 100% a Jewish operation. This is in their own scripture or analysis of scripture in the Talmud.
Was this in the Babylonian Talmud? Well, so this would have been later rabbinic interpretations, centuries later. But we know even early first century Jewish historians like Josephus, they wrote about the crucifixion of Christ on the cross. And they, if you want, you can fact check this if you want, but Josephus himself even mentioned that Christ's followers actually believed that he rose from the dead. And those followers were martyred as well. So we see from the very early writings of a historian in the first century, a Jewish historian, that Jesus was crucified, he was killed on the cross. And the claim was that his followers genuinely believed that he did rise from the dead, and they died believing that. So yeah, that would have been later rabbinic revision of what actually happened. But again,
and possibly false.
Possibly false. But again, that's just them doubling down that we killed Jesus. We hated that guy and we killed him.
Yeah. They want credit for not only killing him, but they want credit for being the actual government of Judea. They don't want to give any credit to the Romans for having occupied it and been basically an administrative government at that point in time. They're like, no, we are the government. We, the Jewish Pharisaic rabbis, we're the government. And we tried him and convicted him and executed him as one of our own. Romans had no authority with respect to him. So they want credit for that. But then fast forward, there's a lot of, like today, like going on right now, in Western countries, there are various efforts to try to criminalize anti-Semitism. They want to make it they wanted to make it an actual crime to say certain anti-Semitic things.
You've been trying to do that forever, though.
Yeah, for a long time. But one of the things one of the things that they want to make a crime is implying that they were responsible, that Jews were responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. They get really cranky about the idea that it's constantly brought up that they committed this form of, spiritual regicide. They don't like that anymore. And they want to make it go away, even though in their own scripture, in their own narrative, in their own fundamental, Jewish book, the Talmud, they very much take credit for it. So whether you follow a Christian narrative or a Jewish narrative, the Jews were responsible for killing Jesus Christ, but they want to make that go away really badly.
Dude, I'm going to pull up that video again that I showed you during our live and that I made that video on, because it's so perfect based on what we're talking about right now. I'm going to pull it up. Hang on.
Which video?
That one where he talks.
Yeah, even
this one where he's literally admitting it out loud.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Even Ben Shapiro is, he speaks very ambiguously about Jesus. And he was on an interview with, I think, Joe Rogan.
It was Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. And he's like,
they said, we don't even believe it. I have it. We don't even believe he's a prophet.
yeah, they're like, we don't believe he's a
Yeah,
prophet.
I have it.
We
Hang
just
on.
think he was
He's
some.
very uncomfortable in that.
Yeah, he was very uncomfortable. You know why? Because a large percentage of his his audience is Christians.
Oh, I'm sure
The vast majority are Christians. So he does not want to admit that the Jews killed him. Of course not. So he kind of tiptoed and pussyfooted around the question.
Yeah. Let me pull this one up really quick. So stop screen, share screen. Hang on.
Are we going to do a Q&A at all?
Yeah, we will.
We have how many viewers do we have?
There's 540 right now. All right, let's just do this. So, okay, here we go. Ready? We're going to make it full screen. Here we go.
When I read Hitler, and I've read a lot of Hitler, and I've read also really the whole.
I'm sure you have.
I'm a student of World War II, and the Holocaust, but also World War II in general.
Is your phone dead?
There's no question that Hitler and the Nazis were
Mine's
fueled by old anti-Semitism, old goblin-like anti-Semitism. The hook-nosed Jew controlling everything. That whole thing.
You hear that coming out of him.
Right.
He's like, grab them by the thumb and say, "You Jew."
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's something
the strong Aryan white and the sniveling weak Jew.
Right.
You hear that in his messaging there.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. There is definitely a throwback, and he even says, "What do you think? It's just a throwback?" It's like, yeah, it is a throwback. But there's another side to it, which is something that I don't know if you're going to be comfortable talking about, but
This is the best part.
he's also angry at the leftiness of American Jewry. He's angry at progressiveness, which has brought in all the gay movement, the LGBT movement. The Jews have led all that stuff.
Wait, what?
Hollywood, which has sown a lot of immorality, a lot of stuff
What?
that Jewish people do bring. See,
Jew hater.
the real truth is, you and I, we're red. If we were states, if we were American states, we're red state guys, okay? And so many of our, basically in the three big ones, Bible, family, nationalism, defense, we're red, the way we look at things, okay? But to deny that the Jewish people have a strong blue streak, and in America, bluer than red, and that all the progressive organizations are all run by Jews or have Jewish people, have Jewish money, to deny that Soros has a huge impact on this world and has a huge impact on the American
He even brought Soros into this.
That these things exist, and that he's saying you're taking our country in a way that is not its natural way. There is an argument to be made that Hitler made the same argument. He was very concerned about communism, and he wasn't wrong that the Jews were the leaders of the communist movement. They took over the Soviet Union. It was in many ways a Jewish thing.
Jew hater, anti-Semite. Guys, I don't know if you heard everything that man just said, but everything that I don't know about you guys, everything I get called a Jew hater and an anti-Semite for, like daily, homeboy just said clear as day. And by the way, I said this on, I made an Instagram post today about this, and I basically said, for anybody that's going to come at me about him being like, a fringe Jew or something like that, or like not part of the actual, crowd. He's the same one that I made another post about, who literally said that he was bragging about the fact that societies, when they become anti-Semitic, they fall. That's the whole reason why societies fall, is because they become anti-Semitic. So he is not like just some low, like just some like self-hating Jew, like all these people like to pretend. Like, he is one of you. He is one of your guys, and he is straight up saying all of the things that I get called an anti-Semite for when I talk about it.
Yeah, it's like if you repeat what they say, now you're an anti-Semite. If you read their Talmud, they wrote the damn book. If you read it, you're an anti-Semite.
Yeah,
but it's not just, and that's not a French thing. He's not an outlier. He's not the only one saying those things. Solomon Friedman, the guy who owns Pornhub, brags about how the pornographers in Nazi Germany were all Jews.
100%.
And he says that to be anti-porn is to be fascist. The fascists were the anti-porn ones. And he says that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so also Ravinsky, the guy who owns OnlyFans, he's a Jew.
We talked about that.
He gave the AIPAC the single biggest donation in history. So he's not just some fringe like secular Jew or whatever. No, he's a Zionist. He's supporting the state of Israel. So you see them all throughout history pushing this perversion of the Western society, and they brag about it. They literally brag about all the liberal progressive movements were spearheaded by Jews. By Jewish politicians.
They're winning their 2,000-year-old war by collapsing society from the inside.
Exactly.
They're very proud.
And what's crazy to me is they talk about stuff like this, where the guy literally just said that they've been primarily blue, but it's the supporters are usually the conservatives.
They're MAGA.
They're MAGA. They're
It's
the
MAGA.
red ones. They're the Christian Zionists that support them. But they literally say, we propagated all of the policies that you guys are against.
Seriously, call all your boys and all your girls right now. All them MAGA influencers, guys, bring them over here and let them watch what we just watched. Because what are you guys talking about? How are you supporting this still? If he is literally bragging about the fact that they are bringing all the things that you're supposed to be vehemently against, like all of the things that you conservatives are supposed to be completely against, he's point blank saying, this is where it comes from. Straight up.
And he's not the only one.
And he's not the only one.
There's plenty of rabbis you can find.
We got that other one. We got this one. Let's find him. We actually had him. I had him up.
So here's a question I have for you, because
this guy, right?
Yep. Yeah, the second video is good.
This one?
Yep.
Here we go. Oh. What the? Hold on. Sorry, hold on a second. My bad. Hold up. That didn't do it the right way. My bad. Let's try that again. Share screen. Sorry, fam. Here we go. And
go like
I'm just going to go back because they couldn't hear a thing.
Hitler implemented. Who knows the first two laws? Before the Nuremberg laws. Before that, we're talking about years before it. Hitler first comes into power. What's the first two laws? Okay, I'll save you the time. Rule number 1. No more pornography. No more homosexuality. None of that garbage. Not allowed. Berlin, in the 30s, in the 20s, was the Sodom and Gomorrah of the day. Homosexuality, pornography, all the bestiality, all the garbage of the world, that was the capital of the world. He outlawed it. You're no longer allowed, closed all the bars, all the gay clubs, all the production, which were all run by Jewish people. Unfortunately. Secondly,
unfortunately,
not allowed to charge.
Coincidentally, it just happened to be.
No more interest. Now you would think, why? What does he care about interest? Well, because all the people that had the money, that lent the money out, were Jews. He said no more interest. Why? Because of the high interest that the Jews charged people was so high, it ruined, it destroyed the economy in Germany. They destroyed, just like they destroyed Russia a few years before that through their communism over there. Jews destroyed Russia, not Goyim. Jews destroyed. Communism is by Jews. Oh. Don't let anybody confuse you. You look at history, Karl Marx, all the other Reshaim, they're all Jews. Wicked, but nonetheless Jews. They destroyed Russia, and he wrote in chapter 2 of Mein Kampf They destroyed Russia. Now they're destroying Germany. Go to the store to buy bread. You had to take a whole horse carriage full of money. By the time you arrive at the store, it wasn't enough. Why? Because the inflation rate was so high. The bread became so much more valuable and your money went down. And at that time, the Great Depression was happening around the entire world. Everyone was in a financial collapse. America was a financial collapse. England was a financial collapse. Germany collapsed worse than everybody else. But after he passed this law, within 6 years, Germany became the leading, wealthiest economy in the world. They called it a financial miracle. Why? They were the only ones that were bold enough to stop interest. This is one of the biggest reasons of why he hated Jews. Because they destroyed the economy because of their greed. This is happening again.
So anyway, guys, that's been a fun stream. We're good. We're gonna retire. We're done. That's I think we've.
Can we do one more question?
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Oh, what the fuck? Yo.
I was joking, dude. It's just like, that's ridiculous. That right there is like if you said those things, if you said exactly those words, exactly how he said them right now, tomorrow, you'd be on the top 10 anti-Semite list for freaking whatever the hell that account is. And stop anti-Semitism.
And it's not like that rabbi was bragging about that. He's simply just giving historical continuity and context to like his congregation at the synagogue.
That's what Cato was saying.
That's all he's doing. He's not. I doubt he knew this was going to be seen by us.
That's literally what you said. Those were your exact words.
And there's multiple videos that have been popping up of rabbis, years ago talking about the same exact thing. So, but I had a question for both of you, because this is something that I've thought a lot about, because it seems like this whole like Great Awakening thing is in a stagnant period, where what's going on is for the past, I don't know, year and a half, I would say, when this really started picking up, 2025, really when it picked up, is we have been, you're in the Marine Corps, so 5-paragraph order, right? There's a systematic way of toppling an enemy, right? You have to begin the planning. You have to create the plan. You have to do, first you have to do, surveillance on your enemy, figure out their capabilities, limitations, where they're at, their strengths, their weaknesses, all of that stuff. And then you get that intel. And then from that intel, you devise a plan. And then based on that plan, you enact that plan and you attack and execute the plan. Where we are at in the Great Awakening globally, or in America, is we haven't even, I don't even think we've reached the planning phase, because what's been going on is there's just been a huge echo chamber with people like Nick, Candace, Tucker, you, me, you, of all of these people just exposing and exposing and exposing and just talking about it, but nobody's taking action. And that's never going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the more we just sit here stagnantly talking about it, the higher this, anti-Semitism goes. And all that does is that pushes and propagates greater Israel. So if we don't take action, if we don't start doing something, devise a plan and actually execute the plan, they will topple us and they will be, essentially victorious with this greater Israel plan, because we're literally just giving them what they want without fucking, grabbing ourselves by the balls and actually doing something. So my question for you guys is, where do you see us at with that whole process, and where do you think we should go next? I have an answer, but I want to hear from you guys too.
Yeah, I'll give my answer, and people aren't going to like it, because I don't claim that there can be victory as far as what all this is where all this is going. I don't believe there can. I believe far too many Americans are stupid, demoralized, morally and mentally weak, spiritually weak, divided. I think we're basically a conquered people. And I think that the plans to cause the downfall of America are ultimately going to happen. I do. We've been largely conquered already.
We're too far gone.
We're wrong.
Gone. Yes,
we're legitimately wrong.
I believe that we're
going to
fall
fall
as a country. However, and I've been doing this for years, I am speaking to the people who realize that this is going to happen, and there's not going to be some big kumbaya moment where everybody gets together and comes up with a solution. Most people are going to continue being demoralized, degenerate,
because it's
lazy,
easy,
weak. Yeah. If they even know, if they're even aware of this stuff, they're going to keep doing the same shit. They're not going to change their lives and uproot themselves and, sell all the cool shit that they're making payments on and try to become self-reliant. So it's too hard. So most people are going to consent to this downfall narrative and bring it about. But a few people are going to say, fuck that. There's no way. And the few people, they are going to be the ones that have the discipline to change their lives. They're going to do it for themselves. They're going to do it for their families, for their loved ones. Maybe they move out of the country. Maybe they become more self-reliant. Maybe they, maybe they start investing in ways that will be more resilient for the future. This could mean a lot of different things, but there's a small number of people who are going to take this seriously and really wake up to this and say, I'm not going to allow myself, me and my family, we're not going to be part of the downfall of America.
And honestly, like that, sorry, I'll go real quick because I agree with you. I'm the same way. I think that we have gotten to a point where we're kind of past the point of no return. And honestly, it's biblical. Like we know that this is a biblical thing. And I think that it's just the point where it's like apathy and entitlement is going to destroy us.
Yeah.
Apathy and entitlement are going to be the number one reason why we don't actually fight back, why we haven't fought back. It's those two things that I believe are completely killing us. We are giving up our free will willingly. Because we just don't want it. We've become a society that just doesn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. We just want to be told what to do, how to do, and why to do it.
Yeah.
And because of that, we are prime victims for all of what we're talking about right now. And so this is kind of going, this goes along with what, Andy Frisella says. Andy Frisella is constantly talking about, he says the greatest, personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion.
Right.
And it's like,
that's very much where I'm at.
That's exactly where I'm at. The way I look at it is this: I'm going to do everything I possibly like. The Titanic is sinking. It's going down.
Yeah.
But I'll be damned if I take my family down into the freaking stateroom and lock us in there and drown.
Right.
I'm going to ride that bitch until the nose is sticking right up out of the water and I have absolutely nothing left. Right. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm going to teach my kids how to do so. I'm going to be, the leader and the man I need to be for my family, for my community. It really does just come down to like, guys, we're sinking. And so we have the choice of fighting while it sinks or just giving up and being apathetic while it sinks.
Right. And I will say this, I think after whatever kind of collapse happens, I think inevitably there will be a rise. There will be a rise back up.
Yes.
So mentally, I'm thinking already way ahead to that.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, however bad it happens, maybe it's another Great Depression, maybe it's another Third World War. There's a lot of ways that things can get really, really bad. And we have to remember that America is a very, very arrogant country. We think that we're powerful. We think we're wealthy. We are, by an enormous margin, the most indebted country on earth. So a lot of individuals and families and businesses and institutions and our entire country is in debt. We're not actually wealthy. We're in debt.
Well, and I think here's the thing though. I think we do differ a little bit right there because I don't think we're headed towards, I don't think we're headed towards a third world war. I don't think we're headed towards, that might happen, but I don't think that's going to be what ultimately all of this is headed to. I think all of this is actually headed to what I believe will be the second coming. I think this is headed towards Jesus Christ coming again and everything we know about the world becoming the darkest, most awful, horrible place before he comes. And then he comes to save us all and get rid of the evil, right? I think that's ultimately at this point where we are going towards. I don't think we have another freaking, I'll be honest, another like 100 years. I think we are that close. I think we are in the last days.
I agree with both of you I agree with your point to an extent. Like, obviously, I'm a Christian, so I believe in the end time prophecy and the return of Christ. But that doesn't mean for me that I'm just going to sit here complicitly and idly and watch the destruction of my society, of my country, of the world, of the Palestinians, of my people. I'm not going to sit back and be complicit and be submissive to this evil. Right? It's going to happen. Christ is going to return and he's going to destroy these fucking evil swine. Eventually, it will fucking happen. But I see a shift in the narrative, a shift in the world right now with Gen Z. That's the first time since maybe the 1940s, 1930s, where we see a significant shift in the population and their viewpoint of what's actually going on. So I think there's a glimmer of hope. I think in the end, that will come to fruition. Christ will return and he will fucking destroy these swine. And it'll be a bad place before that happens. But in the meantime, I don't know a timeline. But I think there's a glimmer of hope, a Hail Mary shot that we can do something if we play the same game that they're playing. And we're not going to vote our way out of this.
No.
We're never going to vote our way out of this mess. What we have to do is we, as Gen Z, we're going to inherit this world next. We need to prop ourselves up in these positions of power all over the world, in politics, in finance, in education, in the entertainment industry, in every industry that these fucking swine run. That's what we need to do. And I see an uprising of Gen Z. I'm not sure how effective it's going to be, but I see for the first time in a long time an actual uprising and awakening in those people.
Well, and that's part of what I'm talking about when I say excellence. Like, personal excellence is not just, I'm talking about the main things that I'm going to do to be excellent. But at the end of the day, obviously part of that is also showing up, standing up, and speaking up, and raising awareness and doing your best to, if you've been given a platform, use that platform for good, right? Regardless of what might be the consequences, which I know you are doing, I know you're doing, I know I'm doing. Like, that's all part of it too, right? I think what I was getting at more was like this. It's like you said, we're not voting our way out of this. And quite frankly, everybody that wants to put on a Punisher mask and act like they're badass and that they're going to freaking take over the United States and overthrow it with a rebellion, you're full of shit. Nobody wants a civil war. Nobody actually wants that. And it wouldn't actually solve anything, because the problem is, then what, right? Then what? What happens then? And it's like, what we need is
that would be exactly the fall of Rome that these people are trying to engineer, right?
Exactly.
Then that means they win.
Exactly. So what you're talking about, Clyde, is exactly what needs to happen. It's a cultural revolution. It's not a physical revolution. It's a cultural revolution. We have to fight against the antithesis, I think that's the word I'm trying to find right now. It's really late, of all the things that these people stand for, right? So instead of worshiping OnlyFans models, go find a beautiful woman who wants to make babies and be a mother and freaking take care of the household and support you as a husband and build an amazing family and do your best to be an example of what the traditional godlike Christian family is for everyone around you. And instead of idolizing, all the evils of the world, do your best to show the opposite of that and support that and be an example of that.
Yeah, I mean, the nuclear family needs to come back. Christian values need to come back, because we've been suppressed by this secularism, which is propagated by who. So, and I kind of see that coming back. I don't know what your guys' feeds look like, but I see a revival of the church. I see a lot of young people coming back to the church and coming back to Christ, and wanting these more traditional values and wanting to bring back the nuclear family. So I see a glimmer of hope there. I think what was it? The boomers and Gen X and like the beginning of millennials kind of dropped the ball. They were the ones just fucking eating the goy slop and inviting all of these people in and voting the neocons in and voting for all of this stuff. And it's kind of like the tail end of millennials and now Gen Z have to deal with the fucking mess they created. And we're pissed off and we don't want to have to fucking deal with this mess anymore. So it's like the pendulum has swung and now we have to deal with the mess that these motherfuckers gave us. And so we're trying to do something.
I will also say, though, a lot of that has to do with, I'm not giving anybody a pass necessarily, but at the same time, like, so much of that has to do with the fact that those generations have been propagandized for so long. The only reason that it's not working, and the only reason why, quote unquote, Netanyahu is saying that we're losing the propaganda war, is because of social media. It's because of the social media world. It's because of the fact that things can be debunked real time. And people are done with this whole, you said that this is the truth, and so I'm going to believe it. We've experienced a revival of people who are willing to ask questions and learn and not just kind of take the answer that they're giving them. I think a lot of people do, but I think a lot of people don't. And I think COVID was actually kind of part of that wake-up call. And I don't know that those people anticipated that. I don't know if that was part of the anticipation. I think they kind of got punched in the nose on that one, caught with their pants down. But a lot of people woke up during COVID, and a lot of people are still asleep. But I think, I think that's the biggest thing, is like the propaganda was so thick for so long. And now that we have social media, now that all the truth is out there, these younger generations aren't falling for it, which is obviously why these people are buying up the social media platforms and doing podcast tours. Dude, I saw the craziest thing today. Actually, it just reminded me. I don't know if you guys saw this. Patrick Bet David.
Cut.
Dude. Wait till you hear. You know what? I'm gonna look it up and just pull it up. I'm gonna surprise you.
While you do that, I'm gonna take a piss.
Yeah. Wait till you see this, dude. This was one of the craziest things that I've seen in a long, long time. Hold on a second.
Are you talking about the roast?
Yeah, bro.
You're talking about what he said to save Bibby?
Yeah, bro.
They didn't have a roasted Bibby?
Yeah. Like, is this a joke? Are you kidding me right now? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I can't believe he actually said it. It's probably in here, actually. What am I doing? Here it is, dude. I can't. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe I saw this morning, dude. It was the absolute most ridiculous. You read the caption, didn't you?
Yeah.
Cheater. But it's unreal. I could not believe. I'm making a video about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shred Patrick Bet-David. Absolutely shred him. This is it. Like, it doesn't get more idiocracy than this, in my opinion. All right, here we go. You guys aren't going to believe this. You have to see it to believe it, but here we go. I think you're a freaking idiot. I think you're a bag of dicks. I think you're the dumbest person on the planet right now, suggesting that a war criminal should be roasted by comedians
Like he's a celebrity or something.
as if he's a celebrity. And not only that, he literally says, so that people can move on.
Yeah. I want to comment on this
Are
because
you high?
he just opened up something that I feel very strongly about with respect to the way that anti-Semitism has been able to really proliferate.
Hold on. Nobody can see that video. Hang on a second, guys. Let me do that. I apologize. I'll put it up. My bad. That's my bad, guys. Hold up.
Play it on 1.5 speed.
No, that wasn't the problem though. It was.
When you do
Yeah. I can do that. Wait, where is it? Settings. Hang on a second, guys. I apologize. That's my fault.
Playback speed.
Yeah, got it. I'll do 1.25. How's that? Or do 1.5.
Yeah.
1.5. That's the move. All right. Sorry, guys. That's my bad. Here we go. Now it's added to the stage. All right. Let's do it one more time. Oh, wait, it's not doing it again. What the hell? Why is it? Hold on. No, I know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. It's because this.
You want to just fill them in with what he said? Or?
No, they have to see this. For everything he's about to say, they have to see this. So hang on. We're doing it one more time. Here we go.
Like it. tag the world, share with everybody. If not, just move on. I think the world needs a comedic roast of Benjamin Netanyahu, sitting right in the middle with the greatest comedians in the world, from America, from the Middle East, from Egypt, from everywhere, just making fun of Benjamin Netanyahu for 2 hours, just like they did with Trump many, many years ago, just like they did with Tom Brady. And Tom doesn't like stuff like this. Neither does Trump, but they took it. And what happened? All the people that hated Brady, they moved on. All the people that hated Trump were like, let me go to the next person now. I think the temperatures are very high. What's going on there, what's happened there, it's terrible. It's not slowing down. People are going back and forth. Why not create a setting for people to say everything they want to get it off their chest? So nobody sits there and says, well, I feel like there's nothing I can say about Israel because if I do, I'm going to get canceled. Here's your opportunity to come and say whatever you want to say. Number two, here's Israel's opportunity to say, listen, we don't walk on water. We also have issues. Make fun of us. Let's move on. Trust me. There's a lot of people that are going to hate this idea, absolutely hate this idea. But I think the world needs a comedic roast of Benjamin Netanyahu. And quite frankly, I also think Israel and Bibi need this as well. What do you think? If you like it, retweet. Bibi, question for you. Are you up for this idea?
I think Israel and Bibi need this. So he's doing it for Israel and Netanyahu. He wants to turn a genocidal maniac war criminal into a celebrity. And there hasn't been somebody as evil as Netanyahu since Stalin, would you say?
Pretty fair comparison.
Yeah. And he wants to turn him into like a celebrity that they're going to do a roast of.
So that everybody can move on.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's a point. So something I feel really strongly about is that I have a very strong suspicion that the reason why there has been a sudden proliferation of all kinds of what we'll call anti-Semitic content in the last year or so is because I believe
they're trying to mainstream it.
I believe it's not just that. I think it is. There's a lot of dark psychology and human behavior that I've studied in trying to make sense of the world. And I think with social media, there is an outlet for a lot of people to blow off steam. So it's basically functions as a pressure release valve. If people can sit on their toilet with their phone in their hand and just mouth off and talk about how shitty someone is or what a stupid idea is or whatever, and then maybe there's thousands of comments talking about how horrible of a leader Trump is or how terrible Obama was or whatever. It just allows people to blow off steam and then do nothing. Because nothing ever really amounts to anything after that. So if people have the ability to sit there on social media or sit there on YouTube or sit there making comments on some news article or whatever, that takes their anger that would historically have turned into some kind of political action, maybe gathering, maybe working on petitions, maybe forming a militia. Instead, they mouth off a little bit on their phone and then they feel a little bit better, right? Their anger gets to a certain point where they're pissed off and they just have to say something, and then they say it, and then their meter goes down, and then they can tolerate it, and then they go back to doing whatever the fuck they were doing. You guys are laughing because I know you felt that before. I have too. I get really fired up about something and I make a comment, and maybe I'm still fired up, but I'm not fired enough that I'm going to do anything about it. And I've observed myself doing that, and I'm sure everybody hearing this has also done the same thing. And when I have seen myself doing that in the past, I'm like, I'm a fucking pussy. This is bullshit. I can't believe I just did something as stupid and meaningless and inconsequential as making a comment. And I actually think that I did something significant enough to now sit here in my arrogance and feel like I don't need to do anymore. So I stopped doing that years ago. And that's when I started taking a bigger stance and trying to publish my research and talk more publicly, because now I feel like I'm actually making a difference. But everybody who's allowed to make comments and mouth off, and most comments on social media and stuff are fucking dumb, but it keeps people from doing anything meaningful. It makes sure that they just sit there. It's a distraction. Exactly. They sit there in their couch, they sit there in bed, or they sit there on the toilet making these comments and blowing off steam, but they don't ever do anything meaningful.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And that's very important.
I wouldn't be surprised if Patrick Bet David and Netanyahu came up with that idea themselves together.
Right.
And it was like, how do we get people to stop calling me a dictator? How do we get people to stop calling me a genocidal maniac?
Right. And
I got a great idea.
I think it is a stupid idea. No, I think it's a stupid idea because I don't think it would be funny at all, because the people that would be joking, I don't think they would have a sense of humor about it at all. I think a lot of people would be way too sensitive. But it shows the arrogance that they have, because they know if they can just get people to talk shit, they'll move on. They know that they can, they're that arrogant and that confident that they can, if give people a pressure release valve and they can talk shit and blow off steam, then after that, they'll move on. They're that arrogant because they've done it so many times. They've gotten people to have horrible leaders doing horrible things. But as long as they have the ability to complain about it on social media, they don't do anything more. And if they don't do anything more, these fuckers get away with it. So in a very real sense, it benefits them to allow people to blow off steam, because once they blow off the steam, they're done. They're done for the day. They're going to sit there and keep doing everything that they do. They're going to go to their jobs. They're going to pay taxes. They're going to bitch and moan and complain, but they're not going to do anything meaningful. And the next time they get pissed off, they're going to write another comment and life goes on.
It's wild, dude. I couldn't even believe when I saw that. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. That is the craziest thing that I've seen in a very long time. We are peak idiocracy at this point.
Yeah.
What do you guys,
With social media, it's super easy to demonize somebody and then humanize them very quickly after.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like you can literally make they could start making memes about Bibi and people will start liking him again. Like it's that stupid, it's that brain rot to forget all the atrocities and war crimes this guy did. So if they did a roast, then people would just start making memes of him, and then the narrative would shift. That maybe remix videos, and they'll make these like aura edits of him and stuff. Like it's so fucking
AI videos.
Yeah, AI videos. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, unless you guys have something else, let's do some Q&A. What do you think? I'll jump to Q&A.
Sure.
All right. If you guys got some questions, put them in the chat. We'll go to the super chats first. And I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for the support. Let's do this one. Jeremiah 24, God put Jews into two groups, good figs and bad figs, just like the Lord warned us, the tares of the enemy sown among us. Will you consider the possibility of evil men among our religious leaders? Will I? Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this.
I don't consider the possibility
of
good men.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, dude, here's the thing, man. I've said this many times. I think there's a far greater chance of men of God or leaders within religion to be capable of some of the most horrific, evil things that the world has ever seen, because that is how it's been historically. Some of the worst things that have ever happened in human history happened based on faith, religion, and God. And what they proclaim, like they were either falsely proclaiming that they were men of God or people of God or whatever, or they did it thinking that it was actually what they were supposed to do based on their faith and their religion. So would I consider
Or they can do things that are just greedy and power mongering, but they can wrap it up in a religious narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because they're coming from a place where people are supposed to believe that they are good people and that they have the authority and the, that they're just another level above. And so it already puts them in a place where far less people will question their actions compared to if it was just another person, right? So would I consider it? I wouldn't only consider it. It would be more of a consideration for me every time. That's why all this crap about Pastor Rob and freaking all these these Zionist pastors that came out after the Charlie Kirk assassination, when everybody's like, you can't say that they're men of God. Why are you saying that? It's like, and what you're not proving your point here. You're not helping your case. You're making it worse. I'm going to question them more than I'll question other people. I don't know. That's my take. What's your take?
With the whole turning point thing, like
no, just this question about like considering the possibility of evil men among leaders in religion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, and the same thing with turning point, how they try to hide behind the religion and say, "Oh, you can't question us because we're men of God" or whatever. They're literally practicing a Jewified, far cry, schismatic, heretical version of Christianity. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Okay, so she hit another one, but it's kind of the same question. Have you considered the awakening to Israel's control over U.S. leaders, bad figs that has cursed every land and habit, is to distract us from the tares among our own religious leaders? What do you think, Cato? What do you think of that one?
I don't really understand that question.
So basically, this last one she said was, God put Jews into two groups, good figs and bad figs, just like the Lord warned us of tares of the enemy sown among us. And then this one basically builds on it, and it says, have you considered the awakening to Israel's control over U.S. leaders, aka the bad figs, that has caused every land they inhabit is actually to distract us from the tares among our own religious leaders? I actually don't really understand what you're trying to say either. as I read that. I'm like, wait a second. Do you understand what they're trying to say?
I would say no.
Okay. But I appreciate the question. If you want to clarify, I appreciate the super chat. Clarify in the actual chat, and we'll see if we can answer that one. But thank you. Let's go live now. All right. Where do the women of God come into play in this fight within good and evil?
Don't be a whore on OnlyFans.
Amen.
At the very least.
Amen.
Be a contributing member to society. Maybe have some kids, raise those kids in a godly manner so that they're not shitbags when they grow up and perpetuate this whole disgusting cycle.
Amen. Clyde, you have so much aura.
Based.
Cato, what do you think about that question? What's your answer?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up OnlyFans. I think with respect to like the whole environment of dating and relationships right now, it's been in decline for a long time for a number of different reasons, right? I think OnlyFans was probably the nail in the coffin because I think two super toxic things happened with the rise of OnlyFans.
I mean, dude,
and
ultimately OnlyFans, what it actually is, like think about in the past, right? To become quote unquote like a porn star, you had to actually like audition, and it was like a career path. Like
right.
you kind of had to like work for it and get into this like career of being a sex performer or whatever, an actress, an actor.
Yeah.
Now, any person, anyone on planet Earth could start an OnlyFans and start selling their body for money.
Right.
And it's literally, I read a statistic somewhere where it was like, I think it said that like 14% of all women at this point own an OnlyFans.
Yeah, it was almost 20% had owned one at some point, but started one or have one currently.
I think that was in an age group. I'm pretty sure it was like a below 25 or something like that.
What that tells me, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had an idea and it's freaking in my head and I don't want to lose it. But basically, like what that tells me is that women have been degraded so far to the point where they believe that the only way they can actually make real money and add enough value to make real money and be worth something is if they sell their body.
I actually disagree with that.
You do?
I do. So, I mean, I agree with you to a point. I think there's a lot of validity in that.
Those women that are making the OnlyFans is
right.
what I'm saying.
And it's not the majority of women that are on OnlyFans.
No,
right?
it's not.
But it is way more than they're used to.
Close to 20%. Though.
There's way more girls doing porn than there used to be.
Yes.
And that's extremely toxic to society.
Yes.
But let's set aside all the girls doing OnlyFans, because I would never date an OnlyFans girl. I don't think you guys would either. So that's not the kind of girls we're interested in. So they're on the margins, right? But the rest of women, the good women that we would actually be interested in as men, those women have seen that the women who do OnlyFans are making massive fucking fortunes easily. And where are they getting that money? From men. So we're sitting here acting like it's women who've been degraded by OnlyFans, but it's been much more men who've been also degraded by OnlyFans.
Yeah,
because they're watching it.
The percentage of men that consume porn is way, 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 way higher than the percentage of women that
right.
are in porn.
Exactly.
For sure. I don't disagree with that.
So now what happened is women have seen, they've observed it in real time.
That's where the value comes from.
Not value.
For men.
What they've seen is it's worse than value. They've seen that men are willing to spend money and contribute to that degenerate trash. And instead of taking their money and spending it on their families or on dating or on their moms or on their kids, they're spending it on these whores on the internet.
But don't you think
so as a result, they've gotten a lot less respect for men. And now women, as a result, I'm not talking about OnlyFans models, I'm talking about regular women, the kind of women that we know in our real lives. They cannot help but look at men with a sense, with more disgust, because they don't know which men's are on OnlyFans, but they know a shitload of men are handing over money to these whores on the internet. Not even whores in real life, literally just pixels on a screen. And they're doing it month after month after month. And that's so pathetic.
The AI OnlyFans that are making like hand over fist.
I know. It's so pathetic and so stupid. How can you continue to have respect for men after you know that these women are making combined billions and billions of dollars, and it's all coming out from men who are working their ass off all day, and they're paying $10, $20, $50, $100 a month to these girls who are not
many
real.
of them married, by the way.
Right. And they're not real. They're either real through pixels on a screen, or they literally do not exist because they're AI. That has caused a lot of women to think men are fucking disgusting and men are hopeless. So now a lot of men who are actually in the dating market trying to find a real woman, a good woman, they're dealing with women who have been so
They have this preconceived
exasperated.
notion about them.
through the dating market.
Right. And so they it's almost like they can't help but think, you know, how can I take men seriously when I know there's this small number of whores on the internet that are becoming millionaires overnight, it particularly when they're 18, which is despicable. Because if they're 17 and they turn 18, it's like millionaire overnight. Where are they getting that money? It's not from other women, it's from men. And so they can't help but have this sort of contempt for men. So it's really degraded men more than it's degraded women. It has certainly degraded women to a large degree. And I do think there's a lot of women that would be pursuing other career paths that are just saying, fuck it, I'm hot and I'm
That's
young.
kind of what I meant.
Millions.
That's what I was,
right.
what
but
I was saying.
That's not the majority, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
But like he said, there's way more men who are consuming porn and they're contributing to this problem by funding it than there are women who are exploiting it.
Well, and also, I mean, the implication of this that will it's inevitably going to run into AI, and this OnlyFans like surge right now is inevitable. It's inevitable that it's going to become AI fake women that men are going into this virtual universe all the time, and eventually it's going to be robots. It's going to be lifelike robots that have lifelike features, and now you get to a point where that lifelike robot has a consciousness that you can design as the man. You can say, I want this woman to do X, Y, and Z and not do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And
change as soon as you're bored.
And it will do everything I want it to do. It becomes it's literally a slave. And men no longer need real women anymore because everything they need and everything they want and everything they don't want is in this robot that has all the lifelike features that they need and exactly what they want, and it never grows old. Right. And it's insane, but this is real. This is going to happen.
And so for women, you know, like it's very common for men to say like, oh, women, they're not feminine anymore. They're so masculine. They're so bossy. They're so demanding. They want stuff. But exactly.
That's exactly right.
Right. So how can they even have respect for men when they're seeing men bring about their own demise? They're consenting and funding their own demise.
Yep.
It's like they can't even look at men to be men anymore collectively. Now there's going to be good men that are sort of like sprinkled about.
Right.
But if they know that there's billions and billions, like women are not the only one. Like we think that we're over here talking about how OnlyFans is.
Oh no, there's tons of men.
There's tons. Well, yeah, men, but they don't really make any money. But women are paying attention to this also. And I think they can't help but think, you know, these stupid bitches on Instagram, on OnlyFans that are making all this money, they're getting the money from men.
Yeah.
And they're getting it from a broad range of men all over the world, from family men, from married men. And what woman wants to be in a relationship with someone that she has to worry about finding out is spending hundreds of dollars a month on OnlyFans models, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of them are so terrified at the very broad reality that men are like that now, that they're stepping back from relationships. And now they're coming into relationships with a lot more distrust or contempt for men. And men are feeling that, and they're saying women are the problem.
Yeah.
Men are thinking women are the problem. But I think to a very large extent, men have kind of brought about their own demise. And they're seeing that. They're seeing their behavior reflected back to them in that contempt from women, but they're blaming women. And that's a big problem I have. That's like something I'm sensitive about, because I think both sides are being weaponized against each other, but they're really not. Both sides are not seeing how they've contributed to it. Crazy. And ultimately, I think men have to be and need to be and naturally are the leaders of civilizations.
For sure.
And we've lost that plot. We've lost the plot. And now broadly speaking, Western women are kind of like revolting against men, because they're like, why should we respect men? Why should we do what they say? Why should we have their kids? Why should we, stay at home raising their kids? Why should we be wives, mothers? Why should we cook and clean?
And this is all part of the subversion.
These idiots are just going to go fall in love with fucking pixels on a screen and spend money on OnlyFans models when they should be, spending it on new clothes for the kids.
And this is all part of the subversion that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
It all goes into the same subversion.
Right. Exactly.
Who owns the porn industry?
Who started it?
Who started it?
Who started it?
Who profits the most off of this?
And they're destroying men and women. They're destroying them differently.
They're destroying, but ultimately what they're really doing.
What are the porn laws in Israel? Do they have any regulation on it?
I don't know. Rabbi Shmuley sells dildos with his daughter, so there's that. Homeboy looks like he has more pubic hair in his face than anybody I've ever met. But anyway, aside from that, the other thing you have to consider is the fact that it's not just destroying men and women. Ultimately, the overall overarching goal and what we've talked about is the fact that it is destroying the nuclear family. It is destroying the good traditional nuclear family, because that is central to everything that anybody who believes in God knows that is absolutely essential and necessary in a society to thrive.
It's the building block.
Period.
Civilization.
And we're losing it.
And that's how they're going to bring about the depopulation agenda too.
100%, because we're not having babies. We talked about this
going off a cliff
because we talked about this.
Right. Yeah.
We looked up a statistic yesterday.
Yep. They're out birthing.
Like, yeah. Number one, the birth rate in America is the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah.
Number two,
And still on the decline.
what was the percentage? It was like 14% or something of Gen Z.
19%.
19% of Gen Z was aborted. 19% of my generation was aborted in the womb.
Crazy.
That's the birth rate
And
of today.
31% of what was it? 31%. What was that statistic? I can't remember. 31% of the abortions from I have to pull this
below
one.
25 or
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 30% of the abortions were from women
Under 25.
Under 25 or something.
That's what it
like
was.
that.
31%.
And we talked about that too. It's like nobody wants to have kids. You know, I'm 27. I'll be 27 in a week. Nobody my age wants to have kids. The only people that I know that have kids that are my age live in like Iowa, and their rent or their mortgage is like
Because you can't afford
$1,100
it.
a month. Nobody can afford to have kids. Nobody wants to have kids because, like we said, the subversion of the dating markets, right? It's been destroyed and tampered with, and men and women don't align with each other anymore, and men are weak.
We've seen the catastrophic effects of divorce on their families.
Divorce as well. The divorce rate is like over 50%.
Yeah. And I grew up in a broken home. I think
Mhm.
it's like half the people I know have grown up in a broken home.
Hey, here's another
So-
question that I don't think we've asked yet. What is the divorce rate in Israel?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But like, for example, in England, the birth rate of native born English, Anglo-Saxon English people is 1.3 per household,
Yeah.
which is not enough
And
to keep up with.
a replacement rate, I think, is 2.1 or 2.2.
Yeah, it's like over double that.
Right.
So the rate to keep up with the demand of population, they're like below half of that. But the interesting thing is these immigrants that are coming in, and we've talked about this and I've talked about this, I've got fucking fried for this. But the fact of the matter is there's a bunch of third world immigrants, and Muslim families in England are having on average 6 to 8 children per family, per household. So in 10 to 20 years, England is not going to be an English country anymore. It's not going to be a white Anglo-Saxon Christian country, which is what it's always been.
Are you ready for this shit? So the U.S. As of 2024, the divorce rate remains between 40 and 50% for first marriages. Okay. The divorce rate as of 2024 in Israel, it rose to a whole 6.5%.
That's crazy. I don't even know what to think of that. Like, why would that be? Because, I mean, it's a smaller country, I guess.
That said it rose 6.5%, but it doesn't say what the total.
Oh, it didn't raise 2. It rose. Okay. Yeah,
It
you're
rose
right.
by 6.2%.
Here, let's do this. Okay, so that's how they figured it out.
But this is all part of the plan I always talk about, where
Here we go.
a well-organized group of a minority will always be a disorganized group of the majority. So Israel is that well-organized group of the minority. And when they're well-organized, as we see they have been for a long time, they can control powerhouses like America, superpowers like America, superpowers like Russia, superpowers like England. You heard about the Great Replacement theory? Yeah.
Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's 27%.
People don't want to talk about
Israel's
that one either.
27%. We're about 48%. They're 27%. It's half. I don't know what to think about that. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting.
Do we want to do the next question?
Yeah, let's do the next question. Let's see. What do we got? Guys, throw your question in the chat if you have one. I'm not seeing. Let's see.
Clyde has so much more.
That's what I said before. Oh, wait, hold. We do have to address this one. Wrong. The most egregious things happened under socialism where religion was canceled. Stop spreading this false and uneducated narrative. I'm sorry, what?
What was it?
I think this person is referring to the fact that I said some of the worst things in history have happened under the guise of religion. And you're trying to tell me I'm wrong? because
Under socialism, where religion
what do you
was
think
canceled?
what do you think happened with socialism? Like, you got an answer for that, Cato?
No.
I do. Why did the Bolshevik Revolution happen? Why did that take place?
That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's a long answer.
I mean, in regards to religion.
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, Bolshevism or communism or whatever was an atheist movement, right? That's what they were promoting.
Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of the vast majority of the actual revolutionaries were Jewish, particularly in the leadership positions, right? So, and there was actually quite a bit of Jews at that time in their writing and in their own writing, like their own newspapers and stuff, who were quite proud of the fact that communism was a Jewish movement, because at that point they thought it was going to be great. There hadn't yet been the genocides and the starvation and all this totalitarian, dystopian stuff.
Yeah.
They thought it was going to be an awesome thing, like a great new solution for the world. So they were kind of bragging about the fact that it was Jewish. And then a few years later, when they realized it was genocide and torture and starvation, then all of a sudden they stopped calling it a Jewish movement. Right?
Yeah.
Suddenly they start to, let's call it a Russian movement.
And then
call it a Jewish movement.
And then go into the next one. How many little boys were raped by Catholic priests and clergy for years and years and years and years and years? That was under the guise of religion and faith and men of God.
Yeah.
That was pretty horrific. What else?
Well,
how about just now?
You could pretty much say the entire Gaza genocide.
Eight centuries of the Islamic Caliphate.
Yeah.
They destroyed 3/4 of the Christian
world. Yeah.
Under the guise of religion.
Stop spreading misinformation, Clyde. All right. Anyway, hope that answers your question. How bad does America have to get here? How bad does America have to get before Americans from both sides finally unite and try, I think you're trying to say unite, and try to fight back against the Zionist-controlled system, maybe start a... This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. This is...
The worse America gets, the more we divide.
We just talked about this. And the last thing that anybody wants is civil war. And anybody that's suggesting that is retarded, in my opinion, because nobody actually wants to get in a physical conflict. People like to pretend like they do because they've never seen physical conflict, but nobody actually wants that. And you can ask anybody who's been in a physical conflict, and they will tell you that that is the worst possible thing that could happen in the United States of America. The absolute worst possible thing. And to your point, it would be the fall of the United States of America, and they would win. That would be the fall of Rome. A civil war would not reignite America. It would destroy it. That's my opinion. If you guys want to answer that one.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the worse that America gets, the worse that the divide is going to become, because that's one of their main strategies, is to divide the Commonwealth people. That's always their strategy. And I talked about this the day Charlie got shot and the day after. I was trying to basically keep everybody even keeled because I knew what was going on. Now, I didn't know who killed Charlie. I didn't have any, good answers at that point. But what I did know for certain is that what the people at the top were doing is shaking the fucking jar. They were shaking the jar and getting you and me pissed off at our neighbor so that we were focused on each other, so that we miss exactly what's going on at the top, what's actually happening with this narrative. So they're always going to pin us against each other. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's the left that usually buys into that. When we saw with Charlie Kirk, they were literally cheering. I mean, there was thousands of people that posted online just egging on the right, just like literally laughing at the death of Charlie Kirk, making fun of his wife and kids, making fun of the right, making fun of Turning Points. And then all they were doing was just shaking up the jar more. And I was trying to keep people to be like calm and cool and collected and tell them essentially, hey, somebody threw a rock and we're the ripple. What we need to do is look at who threw the fucking rock and stop bickering with each other, because we don't even know who did this. But what they want is for you to have a knife at your fucking neighbor's throat. And we gave them that.
I felt the exact same way at the exact same time. And it doesn't get better. I have a very hard time believing that Americans are going to figure out that we're constantly being harassed and targeted and exploited and parasitically used by this outside group, potentially many outside groups, but we're constantly pointing the finger at each other. It's ridiculous.
And that's what they want.
It's
100% what they want.
And I have a very hard time thinking that Americans can ever unwrap their minds from this bipolar dynamic where everything that happens in the world is either because of Republicans or because of Democrats.
Yeah.
It's
They
almost
can't. They
impossible
can't.
to
It's
do.
so ingrained in.
Dude, it's like
I've given up. Yeah.
It is so
I've
ingrained
given
at
up
this
trying to
point
get
that it is that everybody thinks it's a two-party thing.
Yeah.
The tribalism and the identity politics that now exists in this country is absolutely asinine. It's like I made a comment actually on I don't know if you saw this, but the Pentagon has now brought in their newest freaking press people. And I don't know if you saw this, but they're like all the 18 to 23-year-old influencers that were super, super pro-Zionist, went on the Israel trip, all this other stuff. The one kid looks like he's legitimately 12 years old.
Okay.
And I made a comment on one of their posts, and I said something about how they ran propaganda for long enough that now they got their press pass and they're happy or whatever. And they immediately assumed that I was a leftist. Like immediately. The response was, "Oh, it was something like liberalism is a disease." And I'm like, and that proves exactly why you are where you are and why you are who you are, because you didn't even take a second to do a little bit of research of who I am, because I am definitely not a leftist. I'm just somebody who's calling it out on both sides.
Yeah.
And few people can do that. Very few people can do that because it's such a tribalistic, identity politics based culture at this point.
Yeah.
And, the other thing I said the other day was, it's like, let me pull this off real quick. We are not meant to be political. Like, as human beings, politics is a man-made and man-designed thing. It is not supposed to be the thing that we eat, sleep, and dream about and think about all day, every single day. Like, what I said the other day was basically, we are meant, and it is okay to be politically homeless. Like, it shouldn't be the fact that every single day, all we ever talk about is politics, or everything we talk about, or everything we see. Or if I look at somebody on the street based on the way they're dressed, I'm immediately assuming where they exist politically. But that is what has happened with this two-party system in America.
Yeah.
And it is destroying us. And again, it's just, I think it's all part of that agenda. But like, until we can get away from that, and this is, I think, one of the main reasons that I think it's kind of just like the ship is sinking at this point, because how do you break the two-party agenda? You can't. It's too strong. There's too much lobby. There's too much money. There's too much power. There's too much.
There's no third-party alternative, and there never will be, because the only time that you'll get both parties completely united is if there is a third viable option.
Yeah, and every single time a third viable
wants
option rises, it gets absolutely squashed almost immediately. Look at what's happened with Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these people who are actually America first,
right?
Because the reality is, the actual like potential of having a third party right now would be the America First party. Right. It would be the party that is honestly both sides. And both sides just want America first and American people to come first, right? That would be the potential possible next party. But as soon as that starts to rise, we saw it happen. They immediately get canceled and attacked. And it's not just from the opposite side. It is more from their side. And then all the people that are so stupid, the useful idiots that are so bought into this tribalism, just eat it up. And they just support it even more. These magatards.
Have you ever heard of the Patriot Party?
I have.
Do you remember the Patriot Party?
I remember it.
The Patriot Party.
It rose in
instantly.
2020, 2022.
2020. It was in 2020 after the election.
Yes, you're right. Yep.
After the election of 2020, a lot of people were obviously pissed off at the outcome of that election.
Yep.
And a new party started on social media. I'm pretty sure it was on Facebook, and they had an official Facebook page. And if I remember correctly, it went to 700,000 members in like 72 hours. I mean, insane. You're probably going to have a hard time finding this. And then all of a sudden, it was wiped out. It was completely wiped.
I remember seeing it.
And
it was a lion.
They just nuked the pages.
It was a lion. It was a lion, like just like they have the rhino and the freaking, or the what am I looking for? The donkey and the it was a lion. It was like the same shape, but it was
the pages. They nuked any mention of the pages.
Yeah.
You couldn't Google. You couldn't Google them. You couldn't find any reference to them. They were wiped from the internet.
One of them had like, I think at one point when I saw it, it was like almost overnight. maybe like a few days, it had like over 400,000 followers or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just,
I think it got nuked at 700,000 if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it rose super fast because
Yep.
people were desperate for a third option. And that was probably a viable actual third option that had a grassroots movement. And that's why it was just wiped away instantly.
Yep.
Because they cannot ever allow people to have a viable third option because the two bipolar options are completely controlled.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and I've always thought it's very weird that this split between among Americans between Democrat and Republicans is almost exactly 50%. And it has been for decades. Isn't that weird?
That's totally not weird.
It's
dude.
always like 51-49 or 50-50. But they always keep it like this fine balance. It's like if there's ever too many Republicans, it's like they somehow socially engineer some of them to come back over to the left so they can keep this balance. And they've been doing it for decades. For decades,
like
it's been
someone's literally
almost
looking
exactly
at it, and it's
50-50.
like these beads on this line. It's like, ooh, ooh.
I believe it is. I believe they can socially engineer Americans with that much precision.
So do I.
And they do that to maintain this fine balance of people who can accomplish nothing. They want to make sure that they never get too much power on either side, and certainly not in any other third party. Because
they can never be bipartisan on anything except for support for Israel.
Yeah, seriously.
That's the only thing they can
Every single time they vote on something, it's like a freaking battle, and they have to have a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Only, but not when it's about Israel. When it's about Israel, unanimous.
So by keeping it 50-50, they keep people locked in conflict over meaningless issues, like men using women's bathrooms. Like what bathroom should trans people use?
Justice
it's
just culture war nonsense.
It's stupid.
The stuff
it's
that
a waste
doesn't
of
actually
time.
matter.
It doesn't matter. No. But like you guys said, there's never any split on Israel issues, right? They're always willing to spend more money, and they're always willing to fund more Israel wars and Israel, weapons and all this kind of stuff. But they keep us fighting against all this bullshit, and they keep us locked in combat and almost exactly 50-50 so that no side ever becomes victorious, no side ever wins. It's because maintaining that fine balance of conflict between two equally powerful sides is very, very important, because that's how they keep us in perpetual conflict, perpetually donating, right? Every election is the most important election in US history. And every election gets record donations from both sides. Record donations every election. Why? Because all these people are handing money over, thinking they're going to make a difference, when really they're handing money over to a fucking uniparty.
That's exactly what it is. That you nailed it right there. It's a uniparty. Yeah. It's a freaking uniparty. That's what it comes down to.
Can you read Monkey Odd?
Yeah. Can we differentiate between Jays and Israel, the government? All governments do evil things, so it's not surprising. Jays have it in their blood. Mr. Ora?
I think this was a rhetorical question.
I don't know. These questions
differentiate between, I know you have an opinion on this, but yeah, the Likud.
That's mostly a rhetorical question,
I would say so too, but like, sure, the Likud party might be a little bit more extreme than other.
Well, it's far right, radical nationalist.
Yeah, like what we're seeing with the Likud party is like the epitome of the evil of Zionism in Israel.
Well, it's also like what you were talking about with it's an Ashkenazi versus a Sephardic. Like the Ashkenazis were super, super extreme versus the Sephardics. That's kind of what.
So yeah, you could say one side is more moderate and one side is more extreme. But at the end of the day, do they all think that they're better than all Gentiles and they should be in a leadership position? And it's totally
do they all
moral?
Believe in supremacy?
It's totally fair game for them to exploit Gentiles and manipulate them and use them and get wealthy off of their work. And yeah, they both do. They kind of maybe differ in the sort of in like degrees. But at the end of the day, I think they definitely share the idea that they're better than everyone else and that they should be in a controlling position. So that you can say it's in their blood. I wouldn't say it's in their blood, but I would say it's in their religion, and I would say it's in their fundamental worldview.
Yeah, the majority of the population in Israel, like the majority, I think it was like 88% support the destruction of the Amalek. That, and if you don't know what the Amalek is, it's basically in
is that real? That's a real statistic.
Amalek?
No, that 81% supported.
It's like 88%. 88% supported the war in Gaza. I think it was like in the upper 60s or 70% that supported the annexation of the West Bank. Like, this is not a fringe.
No,
it's mainstream. This is the mainstream adoption of the Israeli people, of the people that live there, not just the Likud party. This is what they want.
Yeah.
They want the annexation of the West Bank. They want Gaza, and most of them want greater Israel too.
And they know that involves violence. They're perfectly aware that involves violence. They're aware that it involves a lot of eradication of humans. They're aware that it involves combat, and
but they
even
don't
deaths
look
of
at it
their
as
own.
humans.
Well, that's true. So they are, by there being this being such a mainstream opinion in Israel, they're showing consent that that's what they want, and they are very willing to support it. So I don't think you're going to find that in most races, most religions, most cultures, most nationalities. That is quite a unique Jewish and Israeli belief. And then I think a lot of people also, they say, oh, well, maybe Israel thinks that, but globally Jews, don't think that or whatever. And that, to some degree that's true, but for the most part, they stick together. For the most part,
still mainstream.
Yeah, it is.
There are some that are totally against Zionism.
Yeah,
I know a lot of them. Honestly, I do. I know a lot of them that are totally against everything that Bibi's doing.
Like I know Jewish people. Like if anybody's watching this that thinks that all three of us just hate all Jewish people or all Israelis, I have Jewish friends. As crazy as it sounds, the Gruppers might cancel me now, but like I know Jewish people that are totally opposed to everything that's going on, and they fully agree with every position that I have. So like, no, it's not every Israeli, it's not every Jewish person. I would say if you're an Israeli living there, you're probably complicit with what's going on, paying into the system and living there in somebody else's land. But as far as like Jews that live in New York or something, like the Hasidic population in Brooklyn, yeah, I know there's people there who are vehemently opposed to what's going on in Israel. They're opposed to the Likud party. They're opposed to Netanyahu. They're opposed to Zionism. They're opposed to the annexation of the West Bank and the genocide. So yes, you have Jewish people out there who are, good people that are opposed to this. But at the same time, those religious Jewish people still, they're still waiting for the Messiah to come back. You can't forget that. You can't forget that. They still believe that the Messiah is going to come back and
vanquish all of their enemies.
So maybe they don't have the stomach for the genocide now, but they know, I don't want to look at it now, but I know it's got to happen.
But we're going to end up on top.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. If you have, let's do like one or two more questions, then we're gonna call it. We got, let's see, what do we got? We got 675 people watching. That's freaking awesome, guys. Thank you so much for your all support. Again, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to Clyde's YouTube, and follow Cato on Instagram. It's Cato.Dezora, Dezorra. Follow Clyde. Follow me on Instagram. _the_real_Clyde_ and iWenster. Throw another, if you guys have another question, let's do one more. Let's do one more question. Go ahead and throw it in there, and then we're going to call it. It's late. Or don't, and then we'll just take it as a sign that everybody wants to go to bed.
It's coming in just through YouTube or through X too?
They come in through YouTube and X, but they all come in the same place, I believe. Or maybe there's more in here. Let's see. Oh, no, let's see.
It's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, because we already answered these ones. Let's see. What are some, oh, here you go. That's one. What are some ways to prevent the fall of America, in your opinion? We've kind of talked about that already.
Yeah, those very open-ended.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys aren't going to ask a question, then we are good. We can just freaking go. But Cato, you want to leave us off with something? What do you want to, what's the final thought? Final thought, and then we'll go to Clyde.
My final thought, I don't even know what that would be in the context of. So
I don't know either. We've talked about a lot of shit.
We talked so much because we've been doing this for 2.5 hours, and right before this, we did a 3.5 hour podcast.
We're talking about a lot.
Yeah, we covered a whole lot.
Final thoughts. Patrick Bet David is a freaking idiot, and it's the dumbest, most ridiculous, retarded thing I've ever heard of, thinking that we're going to put Netanyahu on a roast stage. He deserves to be on a lot more than a roast stage. I can think of a few places he deserves to be that's not a stage.
Maybe a different kind of.
And if it was a stage, it would be a different kind of. Something would be happening. Yeah, it'd be a different kind of roast. Brazen Bull. You guys know what the Brazen Bull is?
The last thing I'll say is what we talked about earlier about how social media is used as a pressure release valve for people to just bitch and moan.
Yeah,
they get angry. They see things. They experience things. They experience emotions on social media about things that piss them off. But I think more and more, as social media has proliferated and become kind of the arena for national conversation, people just purge their negative emotions on social media with some snarky comments or whatever. In particular, if they're very bright and intelligent people and they make a comment and it gets like hundreds of likes, then they say, "Oh, I did my civic duty for today. I made a very snarky comment.
Oh, for sure.
I made a very snarky comment on Real News No Bullshit today, and it got 700 likes. I'm such a good citizen."
Yeah.
And in reality, they're doing fucking nothing.
It's the same
They're
thing
doing
as the freaking
absolutely
black
nothing.
square, bro. It's
Yeah.
the same bullshit of feeling like of these people that I've always said this. I've said the people that add zero value to the world, they find their value or they find their virtue in. That's why virtue signaling is a thing, because they can't add value in any other way. That's their way of adding value.
Right.
The people that call you out during COVID for not wearing a mask, they didn't actually believe any of that. They were just, that was their way of like actually being virtuous and actually
They feel like they're
value.
good citizens.
Yeah, it's
So
selective
now
activism.
with social. Yeah. So now a lot of people are using what would traditionally be political activity. People actually organizing, people actually getting together in the community, people actually getting fed up with stuff and trying to create change. Now all that energy, that angry energy that used to build up and become movements, now it just gets purged while people are on the toilet and they make a little snarky comment and they feel so smart.
Yeah.
And so when you have the vast majority of the population doing that, they purge that negative energy and they never actually use it for anything useful or meaningful or consequential.
Mhm.
Then you have a dumbed down, defeated population.
Yep.
That is basically consenting to its own demise because they're not doing anything while the predators of society are raping and pillaging us. And we can see it all day, every day. It's plain as day, but all we do is bitch about it in a few little snarky comments and go back about our business. And so the worst thing people can do is keep doing that. That's the worst fucking thing that most people can do, is continue to bitch and moan on social media and then take that angry energy and purge it by doing that rather than actually doing anything meaningful and getting together and
turning it
organizing
into positive energy and actually making a difference and being part of what we've been talking about.
That
This
is a
culture
change that
revolution.
everybody can make that change, because all it takes is a few decisions a day to not be a little bitch and complain and whine on social media, but actually take that and actually do something meaningful with it. Make the world a better place. Somehow get involved.
Personal excellence.
Right. Personal excellence. I think you said earlier.
Personal excellence is the
ultimate rebellion. Yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Amen. Last thoughts, Mr. Aura. Senior Aura.
Don't get psyoped. Just don't get psyoped.
No more psyops.
That's it.
All right, guys. We're going to call this one tonight. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining us. Once again, please subscribe to YouTube. Follow these guys on Instagram. We love you. Peace out. Oh, wait. Hold up. Wait a minute. There we go.